Call the meeting to order. Welcome, everyone. Please be aware that RMB Council meetings are live streamed to Facebook and Belfast.com at Belfast PEI. Comments are not monitored during the meeting. In the spirit of reconciliation, we acknowledge that the land upon which our organization stands is unceded Mi'kmaq territory. Epiquik, PEI, Mi'kmaq is covered by the historic treaties of peace and friendship. We pay our respects to the indigenous Mi'kmaq people who have occupied the island for over 12,000 years, past, present, and future. Declarations of conflict of interest. Do any members of council have a conflict of interest with items on today's agenda?
I think it's important, Mayor, that the red card be read out.
Okay.
Because it is different this time.
Council members involved in any community grants applications on today's agenda will need to declare a conflict. If they are on an organizer, if they are a board member, or if they have monetary involvement. Those council members that are merely participants or that have family members that are participants fall under communities of interest and are not in a direct conflict of interest. Those members may step out if they feel they have a perceived conflict of interest if they wish. Council members in conflict will need to step out during any discussion about their individual community grant application, but may remain and vote on any other application and community grants recommendations as a block.
Thank you.
Trish.
I'm declaring a conflict for the fire department, and I have both daughters are in the wrestling,
Okay.
so I will step out.
Billy.
I've got conflict for employment with Bob.
Okay.
With the
I'm in
community grants.
conflict as event organizer for Belfast Days, and I will have to step out if there's any discussion on that.
Catherine.
I'm good. I'm clean.
Charlie.
No conflict.
Good. Thank you. Approval of the agenda. Any other items suggested for today's meeting?
I do.
I did
Trish.
well.
So I know there's going to be some for us to change. However, we have some very important breaking news that the community will be very interested in, and I request it to go to the first before we get into further discussions. It will be quick, but it is breaking news that is important.
Okay. Late breaking news. Okay, Lynn.
I have a new item for the agenda that I want to add as well.
Can I go on number 14?
Yes.
Yeah, what is it?
It is discussing Selkirk Road, Route 23.
Selkirk Road?
Yeah. Issues with speed.
Change the name?
Speed, yes.
And I have 3 items that Bob has already been made aware of, but just so everyone else has it on their agendas. So I have an update from the FPIM. I would like to speak to Shop Belfast PEI and also the Southeast Environmental Association upcoming AGM.
Anything else? Okay, may I have a mover and a seconder to adopt?
Can I make a request that maybe we reorder the agenda such that we can take Trish's because she wants to do it first. Then we take the approval of the minutes and
RCMP's not here, so
she's
we
not
could
here,
do
so
that.
okay. And then and if there's any public presentations, they can go as well. But we move RCMP update. We move. So that's number 4. We move number 12.
Hold it, you missed 6
Sorry.
and 7.
I'm okay with 6 staying in just because it will just probably be a quick one.
Okay?
And then 7, if there's agenda items, we can move them.
Yeah, there's not.
There isn't, so
They're
that's fine.
both quick.
So yeah, move 5.
You wanna move 5?
Sorry, 4, sorry, 4. 4, and then 12 and 13 and 14 and all the new ones to the end. So we can get the grants and budget stuff done first.
Just a second. Okay, so actually 12, 13, 14, 15, 16 are already after the budget.
Okay,
So really, you're just moving,
Number 4.
number 4.
okay. Okay,
Okay, and Trish is, where she's adding it, to go next.
and maybe number 9 as well, the annexation exercise update. Move that until after the grants and budget.
Okay. You with that, Joe?
I'm not gonna
Sure.
change, so as long as you guys have it all
Yeah.
sorted.
Yep.
Everybody in compliance with the moves?
Yep.
Yes.
Okay,
As amended.
so approval, a mover and a seconder to approval of the agenda has been amended.
Charlie moves.
Charlie moves, seconded by Trish. All in favor?
Aye.
Nays? Motion carried. Okay, number 5, public presentations, if any.
If anybody in the public want to make a presentation, could they come to that chair in the middle?
I should ask if these.
Can you just
Introduce yourself.
I'm Merrill Gillis. I'm representing St. John's Presbyterian Church, and we have made application for a grant, and I was wondering if these grants here were the only ones considered. Is that how this works?
The ones in the agenda,
Yes.
those are the ones recommended by the grants committee
Okay.
for funding. There was other ones considered that were not recommended for funding. that are not on
So
this
is it
list.
any use in making my presentation if they haven't been recommended?
Yeah, there was actually 23 grants that were on the list for committee members to look at.
Right?
And they ended up making a recommendation for 15 of them.
Okay, so it wouldn't behoove me then to waste your time making a presentation on
I
behalf
don't think
of the
that
church?
necessarily it would be a waste of time because the ultimate decision will take place tonight about the grants. So
Okay.
the committee made a recommendation that the council will.
All right.
So you
Correct,
wanted
and
to-
it's precedent in the past that if somebody comes forward and speaks to their application that didn't get money, that council will then have the ability to consider it or not.
All right. Okay, well, I'm an elder at St. John's Presbyterian Church. This is it's the oldest church on the island. This year is its 200th year in operation. It's been a community fixture for this time. We're planning some celebrations. I expect the 200th year celebrations will bring some people back to the island, to the Belfast area, and raise the profile of it. We're an integral member of the community. We, of the last year, have given $21,000 to needy people and the food bank, off-island travel, and individuals. They don't have to be a member of the church. We do not discriminate in that area. We just give it to people as they have need. This summer past, we hosted the Chances Daycare when they were put out of the school for renovations. We host a highly active youth group, junior and senior high, a men's support group, and a women's support group, among other programs. I also put one in for the Belfast Memorial Cemetery. This this cemetery is not part of the church, but we're part of the church in that we occupy the same real estate, but it's not our cemetery. It's a community cemetery, and it's celebrating the 200th anniversary as well. So I applied for a grant to dress that up a little bit for the 200th, and we did suffer a lot of Fiona damage from that. Even our Veterans Memorial was knocked over, and we didn't get anything from DVA to put it back together, which surprised me because the DVA minister at the time was our local MP, and so that's why I applied for those grants in order to help us out with our 200th anniversary of those community fixtures, and I guess that's the end of my presentation. But we've been in here in the community now for 200 years, so I think, you know, I would ask that you have a look at this. We are a very active member of the community. We've given away last year, along with the 21,000 I've indicated, we've given 48,000 into registered and non-registered charities. So we do our part for the community. Thank you.
Thank you. Hold on.
Oh, you want a question?
Anyone have any questions?
How much are you asking in the grant?
Pardon?
How much were you asking?
2,000 for the church and 1,500 for the cemetery.
Okay.
We still have a lot of Fiona damage to fix. Now the grant is not for that. We wanted the grant specifically to do some things we wanted to design, and we're in the process now of designing a logo for the 200th, and do a couple other cosmetic things around the yard.
So the sign, would it just continue to stay up after the kind of like
Yep.
date, and it would just kind of continue?
Yeah, and I was looking at your sign out there. I would like to actually establish one out there too, if there's room on that. Our church is visited by numerous tourists, and the cemetery is visited by a lot of tourists during the summer. And I expect this year we'll be fairly busy there. Yeah. All right.
Thank you.
I'd actually, had something prepared to discuss during an amendment of that. Should I wait and?
You could do it, if it's an amendment, it would have to be during that time.
Yeah,
This is just for
for who's there
clarification.
now, I don't wanna ask any questions if I'm prepared to read what I have for that.
Right,
Okay.
so you can save it for that.
Okay, and invite him to stay for
All
that
right.
portion. Okay, Merrill, thank you.
Not for the church though,
Oh, come on.
though I attend the church. Hi, my name is Sandra Vendegeer, and I'm here for the labyrinth, the Lavender Labyrinth I'm building. It all started with like just a piece of drawing and just a passion of sharing property. And I always did that when we lived in Beakley River. I did the same thing for the community around me, and people were always welcome to visit there. And when I started the flower farm here, I only had 2 applications in, one for the flower farm, one for the labyrinth. And to be honest, I don't care about the flower farm as long as the labyrinth, which is for Canadian Mental Health Association PEI division. All the money stays on the island. And as long as I have that going and running, I don't care about the rest, because I think mental health is so important. We all went through so much here on the island, and we started with COVID, and then we had Fiona in the middle. I myself had cancer, and this was just a passion that I had to share a part of the property. So I built that Lavender Labyrinth. It's almost done. And I think it's important for the whole community. We, especially in the Belfast, with the passing of our dear teenager and what that family goes through. And I was planning on giving them a free pass for life, because that's, you know, mental health in that family probably is a big issue too. So I really want to advocate for the labyrinth to open the way I want, and I don't need everything I explained every single thing I still needed in the application, which is a lot, but everything helps, right? So to have it open. Yeah.
Anyone with questions?
My same question to you, what was it that you're asking for?
I don't even know out of my
12,000.
so 12,000. Yeah.
And so is there anything for this project that's already in place now?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Go
so-
to Red Sands Floral Farm and you will see what is all done already. And there's just, I posted that I think today or yesterday, an aerial picture of the labyrinth, and it's gorgeous. I'm like, yeah, we did everything by hand. I don't work with machines. Because I find it like my farming too is all no-till, because it's of the environment, and I want to protect everything. So everything is done by hand and dug by hand. And yeah, so there's 250 more lavender plants coming, and then there's 1,000 in total in the whole labyrinth, with a big fountain in the middle, seating area, so people can really, you know, listen to the water and smell the lavender and just relax. And yeah, there's a painter's area for people who just want to draw the lavender labyrinth. And yeah, I think mental health, we think sometimes too low about it. It's a big issue. So yeah, I think that was my presentation. If there's no more questions.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Sherry Pelkey, Executive Director of Belfast Watershed Group. So mine is more of a FYI on some upcoming events that we have for the community. One of them is coming up on April 6th, which is our big fundraiser. It's the Songs for Our Streams, and with local musicians. Number one is Dylan Menzie, who has just been named the PEI Songwriter of the Year, and our own Norm Stewart, and our local band, The Solid Line. So we have something for everyone, and we have Fortune Oysters involved with the oyster bar and other fun little things happening. So this is it's for all ages, so everybody is welcome to come. And you can email me for tickets, or there's tickets over at Gala and Cooper's, of course.
Where is the location?
And it will be at the
No,
Belfast, at the rec center.
Okay.
Yeah. And then April 22nd is Earth Day. And so we're hosting a presentation here at the hall, open to the public, to kind of give everyone the lowdown on the 2 billion tree program, the provincial program that's open to all landowners. So we just wanted to take that opportunity on Earth Day to share all the streams that are available for that program, and have any questions answered that you may have. Depending on the size of the area, it's an opportunity to have free trees planted, which would start next year. But this is just a good opportunity for everybody to get the information firsthand. And we also, on that same day, we're actually going to present our work plan. A lot of people probably don't know this, but our work plan is approved by the provincial government. and it's sent in every year. Which is due next week, but we want to present that to the community so everyone sees the work that we're doing, the projects we have planned, and hopefully by then we'll know some of our bigger projects that we have funding applications out for. And yeah, so we thought we'd take the opportunity on Earth Day to share that information with you. And we'll be posting more about that later, so that stuff for Earth Day is just coming down the pike, so watch for details. And thank you very much for this opportunity.
Quick question, Sherry.
Yes.
The event at the rec center that the Solid Line is playing at,
Yes.
so that's Tim's band. Do
Yes.
you have like a promotional poster?
Posters are up
Is there anything on
downstairs.
social media that I could help share for
On
you? since
Bog.
Yeah, on Bog,
Is
we
it on
have an
Bog?
event
Okay.
set up, an
and then
event
I can
page.
share it to the Solid Line just so I can reach some more avenues for you?
That would be great.
Okay, perfect.
But yeah, we have posters,
Okay.
hard copy posters up. We have an event page started just for promotion, and we've been sharing it with as many community groups, but the more we can share, the better.
I would love to.
We-
I will
we
share it to our
appreciate-
Facebook page.
We
as well.
appreciate
Find that, I'll
so-
get that and I'll share it to the Solid Lines page, just to
Excellent.
reach them and then
Thank you.
to get some more avenues.
Yeah,
out there
it's
for
gonna be,
you.
we've got a
Yeah.
wide range of music
Yes.
for this one, because it hasn't happened since 2019, because COVID shut the next
Yeah.
ones all down, so,
Okay. Well, I'll share that for you then.
thank you.
Find an eye out. Good stuff.
Any other questions?
Thank you.
Thank
you,
you,
Sherry. Okay, number 6, adoption of the February 21st, 2024 council meeting minutes. Previously distributed and all changes incorporated. May I have a mover and a seconder to approve the minutes of the February 21st, 2024 council meeting as presented?
I'll move.
Moved by Lynn, seconded
Second.
by Billy. All in favor?
Aye.
Nays? Motion carried. Okay, the CAO report.
Number 7.
Oh, I thought it was being moved.
No.
Oh, sorry. Business arising from the February 21st, 2024 council meeting minutes. Already adjusted in today's agenda.
Sorry, can I interrupt? When are we doing that breaking news?
Oh,
Yeah.
Let's do it now.
we missed it.
Thank you.
Yeah, the breaking news report.
Breaking news.
Like beep, 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 beep. Breaking news, turning over to Catherine.
So great news, great news, lots of detail. I have been after the federal government since late last week, trying to get an update on our ferry situation. So I had just heard back from him 4:08 this afternoon. So I'm gonna read the email as it was sent to me. As discussed here is the latest from Minister Macaulay on the Wood Islands Ferry. The minister and his team remain committed to ensuring a 2-vessel service. Don't hesitate to reach out if you have any follow-up questions. In November 2023, the Government of Canada announced the procurement of the MV Fanafjord. This is a critically important investment to ensure that we have a safe and reliable 2-ferry service in the Wood Islands while the Davie Shipyard continues to work on design and construction of the new vessel. We have secured the MV Surima from mid-May until October 2024 to ensure a 2-vessel service for peak season. The Surima will also be on standby to provide backup to the MV Confederation until 2-vessel service begins on June 16th. The same timeline for the start of peak season 2-vessel service as every other year. The MV Surima will remain in service until the MV Fanafjord is ready for service in Canada, which is currently tracking for arrival in Wood Islands by late June or early July, followed by crew training
2024?
this year.
Okay.
I can assure you that work to refit the MV Fanafjord is well underway at the, I might butcher this, Fikkerstrand shipyard in Sula, Norway. We will continue to ensure that we have a safe and reliable 2-vessel service in Wood Islands for the long term. I look forward to welcoming Islanders to sail on the MV Fanafjord this summer. So we have that post going live on Facebook right now. It's going to be shared to our social media and websites. But yeah, great news, and this certainly dispels all of the misinformation that's currently floating around the community and the island.
Since we're members of the Eastern CEI Chamber of Commerce, we could send them that notice as
Yes, I plan to.
well? Okay.
Yeah.
You're gonna send it?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll send it right now.
Awesome.
Good stuff.
Thank you.
Wonderful.
It is.
Great news.
Thanks for all your hard work with that, and appreciate it.
Where's
Okay, CAO report.
Thank you, Mayor Gillis. Okay, so for the financial information, it's pretty much the same as it has been for the last couple of months. We're basically on track with our expenditures and revenues, and as you noticed in the budget document, we're within $280 of a $500,000 budget at the end of the fiscal year, so I'm quite pleased with how it's turned out. So I'll just move on to the other items. These other items that I'm bringing up came up during the budget discussions, and the first item is generator funding and installation. I'm happy to announce that the generator for the Wood Islands Warming Center, funded through the Atlantic Canada Opportunities Agency, is now on site, and at the Wood Islands Market, RMB has already received and paid out the 50% of the funds that we got from the Atlantic Canada Opportunities Agency, and the remaining funds are now just waiting for the new fiscal year for the next payment from ACOA. Funding for the installation through the Regional Growth Initiative Fund should be in place in early April so that we can then get that generator installed. So many thanks to our funders and to Wood Islands and Area Development Corporation for hosting the RMB's second warming center.
Get a chance to try it out yesterday?
No. No. It's not installed, but hey. So they also, during the first reading of the budget deliberations, I was asked to elaborate on a few items. One was the evolution of a municipality. Some members weren't sure how we got to where we are today. They remembered when we used to be called the Community Improvement Committee, or CIC. So I'll just read what I have there. The rural municipality was incorporated in 1972 to operate as a community government, or what was called a Community Improvement Committee, or CIC. Until January 1st of 2019, it was administered by one person, typically out of their basement, on an average of 10 to 20 hours per month. After many years of consultation, the government of PEI, or the province, enacted new legislation called the Municipal Government Act, or the MGA, that came into force on December 23, 2017. All CICs were required to transition into the many pieces of legislation, bylaws, financial infrastructure, reporting, administrative procedures, and practices and requirements of the MGA within 5 years. And the important part in that paragraph is are required. In January of 2019, the Council of the Day brought on the current CAO, that's me, to assist in the 5-year transition of adhering to the MGA requirements. RMB successfully completed that transition in December of 2022, a couple years ahead. However, one requirement that was not completed was the adoption of an official plan and development bylaw. That requirement was paused after the province itself gave an extension. And it was felt that RMB residents and the incoming new council, this council, wanted an opportunity for additional consultation prior to accepting a official community plan and development bylaw proposal or not. The important part in that one is it will come to council and they will accept the new plan or not after they complete their public discussions and amendments and or discussions. RMB is currently in full compliance with the MGA as it relates to legislation, bylaws, administrative duties, and office requirements, which is, as this council knows, MGA has considerable administrative requirements to be done as a municipality rather than what the previous CICs had to do. Secondly, what came up was the RMB office. As council is aware, having a fully accessible office operating 5 days per week and open to the public at minimum 4 hours per day is a requirement of the MGA. Due to the projects like the official community plan and development bylaw, and the newly adopted RMB strategic plan and workload it presents, these tasks are driving the current workload and potential further growth for RMB, along with the newly added annexation exercise. The recognition of possible or eventual growth of the office space requirements was also the driving factor for RMB to set up an expansion reserve. At that time, it was expected that the expansion would not be required for a couple of years. That said, it was unexpected that a larger office facility, one that would be suitable for RMB needs for many years to come, actually became available for April 1st of 2025, probably a couple of years ahead of time. The new space being referenced is the old train station that was being used as a restaurant. The previous restaurant tenant chose not to renew their lease for this year or in the future. So they completed their lease in September and were not going to renew. So WIDAC decided they would take the opportunity to upgrade the facility and has offered RMB first choice before they offer it to somebody else. If RMB does not take WIDAC up on its offer after it's completed its upgrade of the facility, it is unknown if that larger facility will become available to RMB again or not. RMB has seen significant growth ever since RMB decided to transition into the MGA requirements. That said, during the budget discussions, RMB Council is now left to decide, 1, to continue on the path of growth that RMB is currently on and lease that space that WIDAC is offering for April 1, 2025 as described in the capital plan portion of the budget, or 2, pause on the expansion plans until a later date for when the expansion is then fully required. That item will come up for council decision during the budget document when we get to the capital portion. With either scenario, there will be no effect on the 24-25 budget. However, there will definitely be an effect on the 26 budget and beyond if we continue with the path of growth that we're currently on. It is up to council to decide in this budget when we get to the budget and today's agenda. And like I say, that's during the capital portion of the budget. The last thing that came up was the actual official community plan and development bylaw. In a recent meeting with Municipal Affairs and Lands, RMB had a chance to ask questions for clarification and description and describe the current premise that RMB is working under. Moving forward, it is planned that RMB will continue with the process to conclusion, and that once all council and public consultation is complete, council will then decide as to whether to move forward with the end of the project or not. Just as a reminder that the plan and bylaw contract was already awarded and is being paid for is being paid for by the infrastructure secretariat. They actually sponsored that
100%?
project, 19%. And they only have a little bit left of the contract. In that same meeting, it was asked if it was advisable to include the annexation exercise in the same process. RMB was advised that it would be better in parallel. And also rather that when we do the official plan, that we put some language in that saying that RMB has or wants the ability to be able to expand as required, and or if there's an annexation and or whatever over the years. So the plan will allow for expansion as required or as approved by council. That item is actually going to be discussed when ASC Chair Councillor Catherine Bryson will cover the RMB annexation exercise update in the number 9 on the agenda. And that's it for my CAO report, unless there's questions. Okay.
Thank you, Bob. Okay, Community Grants Committee.
All right, I guess I'm up.
Recommendations to Councillor, Chair Billy Gamble.
On March 8th, 2024, the Community Grants Committee deliberated on 20 applications for this year's 2024-25 Community Grant Cycle. Following the deliberations, committee members approved 3 recommendations for council consideration. With these community grant allocations, committee members also recognized that by providing these community grants to the various community groups, volunteer groups, facilities, sporting groups, and numerous miscellaneous groups, RMB is able to help support many integral services to the RMB residents. Recommended grants services for this year's funding cycle include the Belfast Rural Fire Department. Do you want each one read out?
Yeah, because there's the people in
Yeah.
that are watching along.
So the fire department, 115,000. The Belfast Rec Center GPI rink grant, 8,500. Belfast Rec Center operations, 26,000. Belfast Rec Center warming center, 1,208. Belfast Area Watershed Group, 7,000. Belfast Days, 7,500. Belfast Historical Society, 4,000. Belfast Minor Hockey, 3,000. Belfast Wrestling Club, 1,500. Panett Raceway, 2,000. Point Prim Lighthouse Society, 3,000. Burnham River Belfast Community Pantry, 2,400. Waidak Warming Center, 1,208. Waidak Operations, 10,000. And the Waidak Wood Islands Lighthouse, 3,000, for a total of 195,816.
Can I just interrupt for a second? I think there's a typo on the Belfast Rec Center operations. I think it should be 26,500.
I believe
Yeah.
correct. So I'll make that change in it. I believe the
It's in the
total's
budget
still correct.
correctly. Yeah, and the total's still correct.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hold on a second, let me write that down. Okay.
All right. Second recommendation was the addition of one question to next year's grant program applications and ongoing. The Community Grants Committee is recommending that next year's applications and beyond contain a question about financial need for the community grant, i.e. any other funders involved and percent of funds from RMB. Third recommendation, move warming center allocations to RMB operation line. The Community Grants Committee felt that as the warming center allocations are for operations and maintenance of RMB's first and second emergency warming center, the annual allocations more appropriately belonged as RMB operational line items and out of the Community Grants program, recommended to be reallocated in the RMB budget allocations. For council consideration, can I guess open questions first?
Yeah.
Questions and discussion?
Questions and or amendments?
I have a question. So, on recommendation about moving the warming center allocation to the operational line item, it's kind of
the same thing, because at the end of the day, it's still coming from our funds. The difference being that it would not be required to get a grant application in, it would just fall into our budget. So next year, so if this recommendation was implemented, there would be no need for the application, because it would just fall in the line items of the budget.
Correct, but additionally, RMB administration would be following both the rec center and WIDAC operations to monitor the invoices and how it's done, just like they would any other RMB operation, because it's funding one of our services. So
Right.
it would just, rather than getting a community grant, because it more appropriately would sit in R&B operations, it was felt it should come out of operations budgets.
So, from an administration point of view, do you think it's more or less of the same work if it lives inside the grants or outside the grants in the operational?
It's probably the same amount of work for us and less for the warming center people, because what will happen is I'll be asking them for information about this to make sure it's right, what the costs are, whatever, so that I can make the appropriate budget recommendations for consideration each year.
And so this would become like an annual line item?
In the budget, yes.
Yeah. And do we expect that, is this year's amount unique, or is this maybe something that, the same amount that we could potentially see each year?
That's what we're not sure about, because this is the first one. What we are sure about, and the reason it's an odd number, 1208, is because the first one, 1208, was the actual invoice from the Belfast Rec Center. So they know exactly how much it costs to have it for operation for 1 year, whereas WIDAC was not sure yet. So we basically decided to go with, or budget for the same amount for this year. Next year, we will be dealing with actual numbers rather than projections for next budget. So that number I expect will change next year.
So the 1208 was for the propane, yeah?
It was
And
for
the tank,
Yeah.
something to set up the tank and the tank rental,
Yeah,
and to put gas in the tank, yeah.
yeah,
So presumably.
and maintenance.
And maintenance, because I'm looking at the invoice, it says propane, that's the line item, propane.
Right, but it's, there's also some minor maintenance that they have to do on these generators every single year.
And so Island Petro does the maintenance?
Yeah, well, whoever, like they will for that, and WIDAC will have the different.
Okay.
This one's a diesel generator and that one's
Right.
propane.
And so we're not sure what the maintenance amount is?
For,
Because we're,
for the WIDAC one, no.
or for this one either?
Well, no, that was built in, because when they did the install, they did the maintenance at the
Right.
same time.
So is this invoice for maintenance and install?
And propane,
So maintenance, install, fill up the tank, and maintain it.
yeah, for the year.
So presumably, if they don't use it, they don't need to refill the propane?
No, the way the system works is that the generator will automatically start up, depending on the generator, either every couple weeks or every month. It'll run for a time, it'll use up some fuel, and so then there's an annual cost to that. Then also it gets maintained every year, just like you would.
And there'd be a tank rental fee each year.
So the first year, the 1208 is a really good guess for WIDAC. It's pretty much bang on for the rec center. But next year we'll have actual numbers.
So, but we could expect that the number may be lower because there's no installation next year.
Correct.
This installation.
Yes, I expect it'll probably be lower next year.
Yeah, they usually just run for like a couple hours to burn off any condensation or anything, so it had the full fill up now, but if it doesn't use any of that, it might be, a little bit.
I do expect it to be less next year.
Billy's show now.
Any more discussion on the allocated funds or the grant
Would one
recommendation?
be under 11 amendment 1, or
Yep.
could I discuss it under this one?
No, now's the time to discuss.
Now's the
it.
time? Okay, I was just gonna, okay. Meryl, can I get you to move up closer, just so I'm not talking too loud? Okay. Thanks for coming, Meryl. So, I just wanted to kind of revisit the conversation on, the St. John's Presbyterian Church. I'm quite familiar with it myself, but I did look into it, and I believe 100% this is an essential building in our municipality. As Meryl said, this is the 200th anniversary of this historical building and landmark in our municipality. Okay, this church is one of the oldest houses of worship in the province, 19th century building with original features, and it has connections to the Selkirk settlers, and that gives it its historical value. It was built by the Selkirk settlers who arrived in our area. The gentleman by the name of Robert Jones, he worked at the Selkirk lumber mill on the Pennant River, and he put in the application to build this church, and it opened in 1824. If I can ask you, Meryl, there was an unfortunate incident in December. There was a theft in the church.
Yeah.
Was that ever rectified?
Well, partially, the items the church lost, we, after the Guardian published the
Yes.
incident, there was a man from Boston who has connections here in the island. His parents are from Charlottetown. He sent us a check for 500 American to cover the cost of the snowblower. The other items taken were actually mine, my personal items, tires, about
So
50.
you had a wonderful person cover the cost, some of the cost of that.
Yeah, I was really impressed. In fact, CBC called me about it.
Yeah.
They wanted his name, but we don't do that.
That story reached a lot of people, obviously, outside the community.
Yeah.
And that was posted on December 28th of 2023.
That's when the theft occurred. It was,
Yeah.
it was after that.
Yeah, and this year there's also a ministry transition as well too, right?
That's correct.
Yeah, so a lot of changes happening to this church. And like I said, I'm 100% in support of this building. There's so many kids in this community that use it for a youth group. It's a house of worship, a place of marriage, a place, a venue, a safe haven for men, women, and children in our community. I myself, I think 100% they can get up to at least 50% of their asking amount, if anything. This is a very essential service in our community. This building is essential, and I definitely ask that decision is revisited.
Actually, the process the way it is now, because the committee already did the work and they're presenting this recommendation,
Okay.
the process is for you to move an amendment
Okay,
and suggest an amount, but you also need a seconder.
okay. So I would like to move the suggestion for $1,000, at least 50% of the asking amount for St. John's Presbyterian Church. I would like to move that amendments.
Trish is seconding that.
Who's seconding?
Trish, is it time for
So
questions?
council gets a chance to discuss and then vote.
So Lynn, are thinking about where we draw the funds from, are you thinking that additional, like it be an additional amount to the total, or that we rejig what is in the grants already?
If there's room for this addition to be incorporated.
So I think that like right now where the budget is that we have like just a little over $1,000 surplus.
$1,061.
Yeah.
Okay, so
So
that
basically,
amount is left over.
definitely it would put us in a position where we don't have anything, that there's no real room for error.
Leave us as a balanced budget if there was no other changes to the budget.
And Lynn, you're the applicant for the Belfast Days?
Yes.
Would you at all consider maybe adjusting your
I'm
ask?
sorry, you can't ask Lynn that question.
Okay.
She would be in conflict of interest, and if you're gonna ask any Belfast Days questions,
Yeah.
she would have to step out.
Okay. The question's not about what hers is, just about whether there would ever be an amendment.
Anything to do with Belfast Days, she would have
Okay.
to step out.
Okay. Then I don't have a
I
question.
can step out if she wants to discuss something.
There was only a question for Lynn, so,
Yeah.
so it doesn't matter.
And I, like, so I'm not on the grants committee, so I don't know the ins and outs. But on here, like, there's some grants that are going to operations that actually bring money in. Is that, like, how does that work? Like, I'm not singling anybody out, but I'm just looking at this and, like, the Belfast Rec Center, Historical Society, I believe, charges a fee. I'm not 100% sure. The lighthouses, like, those are all operations that, to my knowledge, charges a fee for people to use their building. They're not a non-profit. Like, if you compare that to, like, the fire department can't charge a fee to have, like, to show up. So how does that work? And this is just my own, is this just historically that this is what's been given to them? Or is this what they need in order to operate, and do we see what they've basically brought in the past year from, like, their fees, or, like, help me out, because I
Did
don't
you
know.
wanna start with that, Billy, or did you
Sorry,
want me to?
just open up a can.
Yeah,
Sorry. Oh no.
Okay, so I'll
yeah.
I'll take first, if you want
Sorry.
to add anything after, typically, you'll notice there's a few, as you mentioned, that have operations. And one of the things, if you look at the second recommendation,
Yes.
committee members had the same questions. The application that we have does not describe or ask for, well, who else are you getting funding from, or, you know, well, what percentage do you think is coming from RMB? What percentages or
Okay.
other monies can you get, or
So
whatever?
one of these
So what happened?
organizations could be sitting with, like, you know, $20,000 in the bank account. We won't know, but they still ask.
Correct.
Okay.
And there's also something else in there where our own policies suggest, and this was recommended by the municipal government or municipal affairs, that we should not require any kind of financial statements or audited financial statements unless the grant that's being requested is $50,000 or over. So, but that doesn't stop the committee from saying, well, we would like a little bit more information. I mean, so the Belfast Rec Center, as you talked about, you know that it takes way more than $26,500 to operate an arena.
Yeah.
It's in the hundreds of thousands, if not millions. So what portion of that is RMB's? And the same question to any of them that have operations. You know that a lighthouse is funded by other orders of government. They have some other revenues that come in. They also get money from us. So the committee felt it would be helpful in their deliberations if they understood better the funding picture. So they came up with a recommendation, which is number 2, that specifically is going to be on the applications from now on, so that they could better answer that same question that you had.
Okay.
That's why they came up with number 2.
I'm glad that was thought, because I've been wondering that since last year.
Yeah.
Okay.
So that's why. Is there anything you want to add, Billy?
No, I think you got it.
Okay.
Like, I'm trusting that you guys as the grant have already gone through all this and your recommendations, and, you know, I do support Lynn's motion, and if we were able to figure this out just a little bit, that'd be great.
Okay, I should also remind council that when we set up all the committees for RMB, the idea was that the committee members would see all the applications, do all the background, get all the background work, do all the research by talking to applicants or whatever, in order to come to a meeting and then come up with a recommendation so that they could all agree on a recommendation that comes to council. That's the same thing that happens with the SE committee. That's the same thing that happens with the Gas Tax Grants Committee. So the idea was to do all the work so that during the council meeting, council didn't have to go through every single application and all that background. They just had to go with the recommendation and then just question the ones that they wanted to question and or amend. So.
I have a follow-up question, Bob. You mentioned that Municipal Affairs Office had recommended that we don't request financial statements for like applications for under 50,000. So it's a recommendation, it's not a rule?
No, it's a policy. Last year, there was a question that came was, did or should we be requesting, as a matter of fact, Jim brought it up, should we be requesting financial statements from people? And what Municipal Affairs said basically was, there's a lot of groups like who are only applying for $500. In order for them to apply for $500, it would have cost them $3,000 to $5,000 because they would have to get audited financial statements, and they're just not set up for that. And they said island-wide, that's the same situation. So they recommended that it only be 50,000. So that was discussed that it was only going to be 50,000. I can't remember offhand if we actually wrote the policy or not. But that was the information that I brought to committee and council at that time.
It seemed to, like obviously in the example of someone who's asking for $500, it would be ridiculous of us to ask for audited financial statements. Depending on the size of the organization, they're gonna have something, whether it's just a scratch pad. But kind of my opinion is that any of the groups that are coming back to us year after year that are asking for the municipality to provide grants towards their operations, I don't know necessarily if it is an unfair ask, because
You actually are expressing exactly the same thing that the committee agreed on, and that's why they came out with number 2, because they didn't have that information, so now they want that information. So it'll be asked of in the applications for operations to give us more financial detail.
okay, because what I see here in the recommendation is to contain a question about financial need, i.e. any other funders involved and the percentage of the funds from RMB. So that, to me, is 2 questions, not financial statements or
Right.
more finances. So I think there's a bit of a nuance there. And so what I'm thinking is that there might be opportunity to get a bit more insight into these operations, into these organizations that are coming year after year looking for $10,000 plus in operation funds.
You have a suggestion to rewrite number 2 then? Is that what you're saying?
I can tell you that at this point, we did not scribe exactly what the question was going to be. All we know is that what we just talked about, and we were going to bring forward a draft question to the committee to say, are you okay with this question going at it? But we hadn't got to the point of actually writing the exact question.
Right.
But if you have any, because it's, as you say, the number 2 is ambiguous enough, any suggestions that you would like to see, as Garth mentioned, would be appreciated.
Okay, so I'm thinking that like maybe something along the lines of a previous year's financial summary. It doesn't have to go into details, but I'd have to look at the different financial statements to specify which document that we'd like to see. But something along the lines of, you know, what is their top level revenue, what's their top level expenses, how much of that is salaries, and to go in and question how much of it is, how much funding are they getting from other sources.
Okay.
We kind of had that discussion too with the previous grants committee, and we had talked about, but we kind of, it was figuring out a way to ask it politely, basically, and what you can and can't ask.
Yeah, well, they're trying to discriminate
Right.
in
Or discriminate,
organizations.
But it's definitely something that's come up.
Bit of challenge.
Yeah,
So I've taken that, taken that down.
thank you.
So if we have the money in the budget, why don't we just put the 1,000 in?
So, sorry, can we just readdress what is the motion on the table?
The motion on the floor currently is that, that Lynn did and Trish did, is that the St. John's Presbyterian Church be awarded, or awarded a grant of $1,000. Was it 1,000 or was it 1,061?
I just motioned to get,
You said half.
minimum
that's
50%
1,000.
of their asking amount if that's.
So
if that's
$1,000 is what's on the table for the church.
And so are we specifying in this motion where it's coming from? To
No.
come that
No,
way?
no, there's two separate things that happen.
Mhm.
You're agreeing to the community grants recommendations,
Mhm.
and after that, I'll show you what it looks like in the budget, and then you can decide if there's other changes to the budget that you would like. It's not saying that we should take it out of another grant unless you make another motion to take it from somewhere else. But right now, it's only saying to add 1,000 to the community grants recommendation.
So I think that I would like to suggest an amendment to Lynn's motion that it be taken from the grants allocation. The $1,000.
You mean from the recommended, or what community grants is, do you have a seconder?
I'll second that.
Okay,
So will we have to go in camera
Yeah.
for that
Um,
discussion?
no, so what would happen is you would have to say where that's coming from.
Okay, but
So,
if the people that are in conflict, are they allowed to stay?
They're allowed to stay as long as you're not suggesting it come out of one of theirs.
I am.
Okay, yeah, so wherever that's,
Okay.
wherever you're suggesting that come out of, that person is then in conflict and they would have to step out.
this is so complicated because
I know,
then
but
I'm
that's-
gonna counter for another, and then we need Lynn back in. Like,
Right, so we can only deal with one amendment at a time. So in this amendment that you're talking about, Lynn's motion is on the floor and valid.
Yep.
However, you're suggesting that in this particular motion, that it be taken out of somewhere else in order to achieve it. So it's
Yes.
valid. So that means your motion to amend her suggestion is valid. And the question to you is, if it has anything to do with Belfast Days or Wrestling Club or Bog or the Fire Hall, then one of those people or all those people have to step out.
Right.
So where are you suggesting it come from?
If I look quickly, like it'd be an easy suggestion to say that you take $1,000 off Belfast Days, or it can be something that take a bit here, bit here, bit here, and make it work.
Okay, but this
Okay.
is your amendment, so you
Yeah.
have to suggest where it's coming
Okay,
from.
so I'll say my suggestion is to take $1,000 off Belfast Days.
Okay, in which case, and you have a seconder, so Lynn, you would have to step out of the room for this discussion.
Who was the seconder?
I seconded
Okay,
the motion,
sorry.
but I didn't
Okay.
second for Belfast Days, right? Like,
No,
I
but
have
you-
another area.
You second
So is
the
that part of the
amendment,
Right.
just
or
the
seconder
discussion?
to the
So
amendment.
we're
have-
amending the amendment.
No, you would have to deal with this amendment first, and then if it fails, then you could do another amendment where the 1,000 would come from somewhere else. Okay? You have to deal with this one first.
Sure.
So I guess maybe I'll just provide a
Okay,
bit
just a
of,
second. I just need to make sure I get the. Okay.
Documentation.
So,
I guess, can I also ask, because all of these deliberations are done in camera, so now we're essentially opening up all discussions
To
on
live stream.
live stream
no.
forever.
No, the committee deliberations are in camera and or in confidence because they're negotiations. However, in a council meeting, it's a public meeting.
Okay.
And so anything that you're doing in the public meeting
but the
for community grants,
grants meeting was in the public.
I know, but except that these, that's different. You're negotiating.
That's what we're about to do.
Yeah, I know. However, council meetings are public and decisions are, you notice that committee only made a recommendation. In this case, this is a council motion,
Yeah,
so you're actually making a decision. Committee doesn't get to make a decision, they're only making a recommendation.
Okay.
That's why theirs is in camera and yours is not.
okay.
And so, your motion, Charlie, just to confirm, is to take 1,000 from Belfast Days.
Yeah,
Okay. And so, people can speak to it now and or vote on it, and if that doesn't pass, you can suggest something else.
and so when we discuss it, before we vote, is it allowed that we discuss other viable options before people vote, or you just, this is the option?
You can mention it if you like in
Okay.
your argument.
Okay. So I guess I'll just speak to why I chose Belfast Days.
Yes.
Not that I don't appreciate Belfast Days and everything that it brings to the community, but it's growing and growing, and maybe in the kind of spirit that it's a 200 celebration for the St. John's Presbyterian Church, maybe Belfast Days doesn't grow quite as much this year, and then they get back on track next year. So that's kind of my reasoning for selecting Belfast Days, not because I don't like them.
Any others speaking to the Belfast Days?
I think we're ready for a vote.
So Grant, or yeah, Garth, you,
Billy.
oh, actually Billy, you can
This is
call.
Billy's house now.
You can call
It's a
for
lot
a
back
vote
and
on-
forth.
On this amendment.
All right, can I have a show of, right, or
Yeah.
yeah, can we have a vote on whether to transfer funds from Belfast Days or not?
The $1,000.
All in favor?
Against?
Do I say aye?
Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
Nay.
Nays? Nay. Okay, so that is defeated. Just a second.
So there's one aye, one yes, and the rest were no's?
Three
Or I didn't
no's.
hear everybody say?
Yep.
I
Oh,
did not make a decision.
Garth does get a
I'm
chance to
torn.
vote on that, which is me. Right.
We're still thinking.
So
We're
it's-
still deliberating.
So basically, that was defeated.
No, it
No,
wasn't.
people
What?
are still deciding.
I wasn't certain. I'm trying to think.
Yeah.
It's
Can I make another suggestion?
You mean before we do the vote?
Before, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So I think, you know, this isn't gonna make me popular, but if we are to take from this budget, and I would suggest that we take it from number 8, the Historical Society, and here are my reasons. The grant last year was for repair of the roof. It hasn't been finished yet. The grant this year, my understanding, was to be used towards that same purpose. The St. John's is asking, for historical reason. So therefore, it's still keeping that grant allocation in different locations, but for the same purpose. So I guess if I were to potentially take it from anywhere, I would suggest that we move 1,000 to St. John's, and then the Historical Society would then be 3,000 for this year.
Okay, so that's just discussion. We still have to do a vote on the motion to move $1,000 out of Belfast Days and $1,000 into St. John's Presbyterian. So Billy, did you want to call the vote again, or was there more discussion?
What was Belfast Days grant last year?
It was
Yeah, 5.
Belfast Days. They ended up getting $3,500.
This is slightly more than double.
That's right. So they requested 75, and committee recommended that they receive the 75.
Thanks for asking that, because I didn't realize there was that much of a jump.
Yeah.
What was the reasoning for asking that much more?
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's
the
an
expansion.
Yeah.
I think the committee felt that it was, one of the bigger celebrations that we have for Belfast, and it had a large draw for the community.
The application also provided a very large work plan.
I didn't, it wasn't
Yeah.
in the, I don't think it was in the application. It should
Could
have
we
been
split the,
The difference.
I like your idea because it's still within the historical keeping. And that's a very large jump from last year, that maybe we take 5 from Belfast and 5 from the Historical Society, and then it's kind of spread out and it's not as much of a hurt, but yet we're able to honor the history of our community. And yeah, I don't know.
So that would be for discussion. The vote on the floor at the moment is 1,000 from Belfast. If the mover
I'd like to,
decides to,
Their amendment?
with the approval of the seconder, if you decide to amend that to something different, you can do that if you like.
yeah, I'd like to do that. I think that's a great idea.
500, 500.
500, yours, 500, 500.
And so with the
Is
permission
seconder
of,
approval of that
so with the
motion?
permission of the mover and the seconder, that means the 500 is now the amendment that's on the floor.
I think that's fair.
In which case, Billy, you would now call for a
Yeah.
vote on that.
All right. So can I have a show of all in favor? Aye.
So that's
All opposed?
unanimous.
All
500. Okay, so that's 500. Okay, so that's 1,000 to St. John's Presbyterian Church, and 500 from Belfast Historical, and 500 from Belfast Days.
Anyone know Lynn's number?
I can go get her.
Meryl, while you're here, have you reached out to Tourism PEI at all?
We have a media person who's gonna do that. But,
Yeah.
I will check with her.
Yeah, because they might have, and
We missed a COA by, I didn't realize you had to be well in advance.
Yeah.
of COA, so you have to be over a year ahead, and so we missed that one. But we are extremely happy with this decision tonight, and we are a growing church. We're buffering the trend. Other churches on the island are dropping, we're certainly in the drain, so we have the happy coincidence off of Growing Church. So,
Yeah.
but I will look at that.
Yeah, and I can't remember the name of the group, but one of the, I mean, given that it is such a historically significant site and significance of the age of it,
Yep.
I'm sure there must be some
Yeah.
history funding too. I can't remember the name of the organization, but there must
But
be.
we'll,
some-
yeah, we'll be
It's
looking.
It's the PI Museum and Heritage Foundation.
Yeah.
Sorry?
Yeah, you should check in with them, because I
PI
mean, they're,
Museum and Heritage.
by all means, it should be historically designated.
Well, it
church.
is, but
Well, yeah.
that's a double-edged sword.
Yeah, yeah. But there might be some funding through that.
Coda?
It is called.
So,
I'll have to get Jim Kinney on our side, because he can find money anywhere.
thanks, Darrell. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Billy,
Lynn,
it's,
for those
back to
kind
you.
words. We really appreciate. I'll pass on to the rest of the session. Good news. Thanks very much.
Thank you, Meryl, for coming.
Thank you.
Okay.
So it's back to you, Billy, to see if there's any other amendments to the community grants recommendation.
All right. Do we have any other suggested amendments? No. All right. So I guess I will ask for a mover and a seconder
Charlie moves.
Okay, hold on, let me
Move
get
in
to the seconder
page
for,
again,
okay?
to accept the recommendations as amended.
Correct. Okay, so who was the mover?
Charlie.
No second? I can do that, yeah.
Ooh, you get to participate in
Yeah,
a different
my
way
name
now.
on board.
All in favor?
I,
Aye.
Opposed?
All opposed?
Carried unanimously. So, that figure will go in the budget. It actually didn't change what the budget document looks like as far as the community grants go. Which
Here we go.
then leads us to the budget.
is Lynn allowed to know the recommendation that
We can tell her now.
Okay, perfect, perfect. Okay,
I
yeah.
told her, so I
Yeah.
guess I will buy this
Suspense.
one.
Okay, yeah, we can tell her now, so. back to you. 2024-2025 budget, financial, and capital plans, second reading, presented by Bob Brooks. As you know, the budget document was attached and was also made available to the public on our website. We have received no outside comments. Any comments that came in were directly to the councilors who are representing them today. We completed first reading of the budget without any amendments on February 21st. And today it's coming up for second reading, and this is where council gets to do all the amendments before they pass the budget. We'll present amendments as required for community grants that we just talked about, so that's now going in the budget. And there is some slight amendments because of new bog numbers that we have, but that's an in-out, so it really has no effect on the budget, just good news for bog. Because some more money came in from Community Foundation. And this will give greater detail to the RMB expansion project, and that's up for decision as well. I'll also be looking for direction from council regarding the use of the reserve funds, and we'll be including any other amendments that council may wish to bring to the budget. And finally, there's whether council agrees with the 0.03 increase to the mill rate, which equates to a 2.5% budget increase, or $20.36 on the average home annual tax bill. The mayor will then be seeking approval
for second reading as amended, and final approval of the RMB 2024-25 budget, financial plan, and capital plan. Once that is received, then my job is to send that decision off to finance with the province, and they will adjust our assessment rates accordingly for the bill that will come out in the summer. So before we get to any of the amendments, what I've done is I've listed all the amendments that I know about, and that we can talk about and make a decision on. And then you'll see number 4 is left for any other amendments that you may decide you want to present or whatever and discuss. But before we get to the amendments, were there any more clarifications that anyone was looking for before we get to the amendments?
I have a question. So we have a line item in the expenditure for election by election, and we
Yes.
put in $500 for this year.
Correct.
I'm just wondering if something like that might be better suited in some type of reserve fund, so then that way it doesn't get used. So I think that probably the idea is to put away some money in case we have to have an election, or in the last case we didn't have to have an election, but there's still costs associated with it, and so that's us trying to put that money aside for
Right.
that. And so I'm just wondering, if we leave it as just a regular line item in the budget, then it can be varied and it can be kind of adjusted throughout the year if we need it. Whereas it doesn't really meet the true need of it, which is the intent of it is to put it aside for an election. So if we leave it in the line item, it can get used for other purposes. Whereas if we put it in the reserve, then it stays there.
Well, yes and no. If you put in a reserve and there's an election, it would have to come out of the reserve.
Yes, but
in
it
order
will-
to
yes.
pay for it.
Yes.
So yes, you could create a reserve for that item, and or a similar might be a legal fund.
Mhm.
So if there was a reserve account that you wanted to create, we could certainly do that and
And
move
maybe
those
there's a
items.
different vehicle for it, but the intent
No,
is.
that's a good vehicle.
Okay.
Otherwise, the only other vehicle would be to not name it and just have a figure in your contingency fund.
Mhm.
And maybe your contingency fund is now 1,500, but the same thing would happen if you
If you
don't
needed the
use the
contingency.
contingency.
Yeah.
Then you just end up, well, actually, here's what happens. So let's say at the end of the year, we end up being $1,000 over, unspent, right? So a surplus. Then council decides at that time, do they want to put it into a reserve because we didn't spend the election money? Do we want to put it in some reserve account? So basically you're doing that now, except you're doing it at the end of the year. Or you could do it as you're suggesting and set up that reserve now and just put the money in that reserve. And then if we need it, then we need it for those purposes.
Mhm.
Either way, whichever works for you.
So I think that maybe the gap that I see in the second option, which is to just put it in at the end of the year, is that we might not have it at the end of the year because it might get, so say you,
Might get spent
if
somewhere
it'll get
else.
spent somewhere else.
Yeah.
So the intent that I have is that we put it aside and we don't let it be spent somewhere else. So then that way, when an election does come, we're not scrambling because.
Yep. In which case, the only thing that we would require is on number 4, when we get to number 4, make a motion, and you'll need a seconder. And I would suggest that if you want to do the the miscellaneous fund, you could also do the same thing to the contingency fund. You could also do the same thing to the legal fund.
Throw them into reserve.
Sorry. I would suggest leaving miscellaneous where it is, but the only two that I'm suggesting that you do, now that I said it out loud, The only ones I'm suggesting that you do that reserve is for the legal fund and the by-election fund.
And so, by its definition, does a reserve have to be a separate bank account?
No,
Okay, so there's not necessarily an additional cost, like
no,
it had to be its own
it's a
bank account to
paper,
be
it's
cost.
a paper allocation,
Okay,
but you would save that for number 4, if you want to do that. Is everybody okay with me going to the amendments as listed? First, the amendment is to accept the amendments as discussed. Just to just to make the motion we already did, or put it in this document. We will put it in this document as well, or this amendment sheet as well. And for the motion itself, we had, for amendment 1, we had Charlie and Garth. Oh, actually, that was for the committee. So we'll actually need a new mover and a new seconder for amendment to accept the community grants.
I'm so confused.
As-
but I'll do it.
But yeah, okay.
Moved by Trish,
The only reason I can't just go with that is
I'll
because
second.
Garth actually voted on that other one. He can't do it now.
I'll second.
second by Billy.
Okay, so Trish and Billy to accept the community grants as amended. Okay,
All in favor?
Aye.
Nays? Amended carried.
okay. Number 2 is it's merely a paper transaction. BOG, as you know, has an in-out agreement with Community Foundation. They provide us with a check, we give it to BOG. So we have new numbers, and that new number, that's
Is there any way you're taking a cut of that? When we do that?
I'll give you a couple trees.
As long as they're not suing.
if you're okay, tree related, yes. Okay, so that is merely an in-out to Garth, mover and a seconder.
We have a mover and a seconder to amendment number 2 for the BOG.
Charlie?
Charlie moved,
yeah, Catherine second.
Catherine second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Nay? Amendment 2 carried.
Thank you. Number 3 is an amendment to accept the updated capital plan description on the RMB expansion project as presented or amended. And I'm going to bring up the document now so you can see what it looks like. And if you look in the
3, they went past it. There.
Yes, so this is in the capital budget plan. We have to, there's 3 things that are required. It's the budget, the financial plan, and the capital plan. Typically, we say, no, we don't have anything except my desk. Now, we're starting to get into things like the generator or whatever. However, one of the things that were set up in the past was an RMB expansion reserve, which is currently sitting at $25,000. And you'll notice it says for 25-26 because anything we do in this capital plan will not affect this budget, but it will affect budget in the future. And the province needs to know what is planned in the future for the next 5 years. So this covers that. It also puts in writing the capital plan for the office, and that's what you're going to be deciding on today. So what it says is the RMB expansion reserve, currently sitting at $25,000, was set up to enable RMB to set aside funds incrementally to enable RMB to grow as the workload and RMB strategic plan dictates. Recognizing future growth potential and inevitability, RMB asked WIDAC to give it first consideration should the current restaurant building tenants ever decide to cancel their lease. That option presented itself in September of 2023 in preparation for a new tenant in that building. WIDAC is upgrading the foundation, the heating, the electrical, and the landscaping. That building will be available for a new tenant in April of 2025. Based on previous council direction, both previous and present councils, the workload that is planned for over the next 3 years with the official plan and development bylaw exercise and the annexation exercise, the additional monitoring and reporting of the new Canada Community Building Fund. It's expected to be about $600,000 in money this year, and the adoption of the task indicated in the already adopted 2023 adopted strategic plan. It is planned that RMB will take advantage of the expanded office opportunity now available if council so decides. This would mean that RMB would not have to look at new building space in the near future, would be able to move into the new space before it is leased to someone else, and RMB would be able to have the space prepared to RMB's exact specifications. Meaning that would save us a whole bunch of money in retrofit money. If we were to do it later on after the building's finished, it would cost a lot more. This would mean that RMB would not have to look at building any new space in the near future, would be able to move into the new space before it is leased to someone else, and RMB would be able to have the space prepared to RMB's exact specifications. Should everything go as planned, RMB would move into the new facility for April 1, 2025. Costs for that move and the transition will be able to be covered by the projected RMB expansion reserve. And you'll notice I said projected because when we get to the budget document talking about reserve funds, there's some additional monies that is left over from surplus or that had not been allocated that I was suggesting go into that fund. Now, having said that, and what won't be described here, but I had described to people earlier, was that RMB has a couple options in front of them. They can pause and say, okay, no, we're just going to stay in our space and just carry on for a while and until we absolutely have to grow because we're busting at the seams, and then hopefully find something and or build something, which would then cost us a lot of money. Or they could take advantage of the fact that that space is now available. The other availability for you is if you do want to take it, there's some options that RMB could look at to say, okay, well, we looked at the building, we could live in that space easily in how it's already divvied up, easily for the next 3 to 5 years. Probably 3 for sure to 5 years, depending on what happens with the official plan, development, bylaw, annexation, all that good stuff. WIDAC is open for us in order so that we can keep that facility in our name. We can do a sublease. One or a couple of the things that we could use in the sublease, as you know, RMB talked about a wellness center and or a clinic and or some sort of medical facility or whatever that could temporarily go in there. It might go in there for 2 to 3 years, might go in there to 5 years, it might be 10 years, whatever, you know. However, at the end of the day, if RMB ever says, oh, we have to grow into the space, then that tenant would be given notice and then we would move into the space. The other idea for that space is it's already set up for a takeout for meal service. So you could look at a couple options where you might say, okay, well, we'll cater to the tourists and sublet to takeout service so they could cater to the tourists for food, and then we could do medical the other 8 months of the year. Or just do the medical and or whomever else the sublease could be. And WIDAC would be looking at the options of food trucks or a food truck service that they would put out front to service the tourist trade for food. So basically, if you took the option to continue with our growth the way it's going, then RMB would try and find a sublease to use the space until we need it. If your other option is, we're growing too fast, it's gonna cost us more money next year, we'll probably have to do, I already discussed with council that it's gonna cost about 2/3. I was able to, at this point, it's only a negotiating point because we don't actually have a lease, but it is expected to cost us approximately 2/3 more than it does now, which roughly equates to $10,000 more that we'll have to find in next year's budget.
Plus extra, cleaning fees and furniture.
Right, so it could be even more. Yeah, it could be even more.
So Bob, when do you kind of like, in where we are with negotiations with WIDAC, when do you, like if council says yes, we'd like to go ahead, when do you like expect that we might be in a position to sign the lease? Because that's when everything is set in stone, so.
Right, so they are already getting all their quotes. The one thing that they had to do is they had to pull out the Maritime Electric figure because we'll actually have our own separate meter. But the lease that we have now, it's included within it, so they're just divvying it up. We expect to have an actual lease probably within something that we could sign. Sorry. It also depends on the contractors because the contractors may or may not have it available finished by April 1. They expect it should be, but you never know. So potentially we could have a lease to sign within 1 to 2 months. The issue for WIDAC is in that other section, they have a whole bunch of restaurant equipment that they don't need in an RMB facility that they would sell to try and help recoup the costs of all these infrastructure. So WIDAC would like to know, based on the premise that it's going to be about 2/3 more, and as Catherine rightly pointed out, that's just for the lease. They would like to know at the end of this meeting so that they can decide if they have to try and find a buyer for the restaurant equipment or not.
And can I ask another question? So is it WIDAC paying for the renovations and the retrofit of the building? Or
Yes, it's their
are we
building.
covering that?
No, it's their building.
But they're applying for grants through us?
And they're, what they're doing is they're applying for grants. There's a few locations that they're doing. The only thing they require from us is a letter of support. They may come back at some point with a community grant ask in next year's community grant saying it costs us this much. We're trying to find a way to cover the extra $5,000 or whatever. They may come back to you with a grant request or as a one-off, but they are covering it's their building, so they're responsible for the renovations.
And so just to clarify, I understood that one of the reasons for maintaining our FCM funds was that so we would apply for the municipal green funds for that building. Was that
No, not just for that building, for as you know, the FCM municipal green funds are for any environmental project that RMB decides that they want to apply on. If RMB is not a member of the FCM, we can't apply on any of that money. Potentially, there's money that, for example, if they're going to improve the insulation on that building, then we could apply for a grant from the FCM Green Fund to help pay for that for them.
Insulation
For
windows.
the insulation or windows and all that kind of stuff. Anything that's green-ish.
So how would that work though?
Yeah.
Kinda,
Okay,
Yeah.
so the municipality can apply on behalf of a not-for-profit.
okay.
Just like we do with the infrastructure secretariat,
Okay.
it's the same thing. We're basically acting as a middleman.
And so have we had conversations, sorry Trish, have we had conversations, if we are able to come up with, you know, a large sum of money, are we going to therefore reap the benefits of those and have a lower lease or?
As a matter of fact, that's great segue into the point I just made about the fact that we're on our own meter. If we, for example, get an FCM Green Funds grant that's gonna lower our maritime electric bill by 50%, then we get automatic benefit from that, and it virtually did not cost us anything other than applying for the grant and being awarded. Then we do the building, and then we reap the benefit. That's just one example.
Yeah, but in the example of say insulation or windows and stuff like that, we reap the benefit of the glory of having something that's energy efficient. But has there been any discussions with WIDAC about if we're able to secure some funding for them, that they might offset some of the costs in kind? And
Oh, well, everything is up for negotiation. Because they came to us before and said, okay, so we're gonna do this building, we're going to try and apply on a number of different things. So we will basically try and make sure that what we're helping them with is ultimately also going to help the municipality.
Yeah.
So we don't know what that truly
Trish,
Yeah.
looks like.
next. Trish.
Has there been any clarification if the renovations to the building will ensure that it is accessible,
Yes,
100%?
guaranteed.
Okay. My other concern, so as you know, I brought this up a few weeks ago about potentially looking at, you know, the health or something
Yeah.
going in there. As a business owner myself, I would not be interested in subletting a building if I knew that it was only for 2 years, 3 years, 4 years.
8
Because,
months.
right, you know, that's not, I don't think that would be a really good business plan for anybody that's looking, and I think it would be very hard to sublet it in that regards. One of the thoughts that I would recommend looking into is that, okay, we make the move into the building, we don't need that whole building right now, so maybe we say, okay, rather than subletting it and still paying our rent where we currently are, say goodbye to where we are currently, move into that, take over a third, a half, what is bare minimal, and then lease out that part. And then therefore that would offset part of the cost of what we're leasing. And I think for a business looking at it to know that, okay, you know, I've got half of that. Longevity wise would probably be a longer time in that half section than, all right, we need to move in because, you know, we can't handle in there. So I feel there's obviously a lot more growing space in the train station, but it's a lot more growing space that is in a condensed area, while allowing the rest of the building to be potentially leased, short term for, you know, whether or not that's a massage therapist, a foot care worker, something that our community needs to be able to help. A lot of seniors are in this area, especially with foot care, diabetics and that struggle to get to Montague.
So everything that you just said is what's envisioned. The only thing that you've said differently is that it would be a a long-term lease, you're saying minimum 5 years?
Yeah,
Because at some point, RMB would have to, we
Right.
don't know, it might be 10 years from
right.
now.
And you don't know, however, if you're in the office that you're in and you feel that you have to bring in another person, you have a lot less footprint where we currently are to be able to expand.
Yeah, we can't do that.
You
But we
can't.
could do that. We
You
could
could-
actually have room for
You could
5
do
people in
that.
that other space.
In potentially even, you know, a third or half of the space of that building, you'd have a much easier way to, you know, rejig the configuration of just, you know, half that size without having to go, okay, boom, you guys are out of this building, we've got to jump in.
Correct.
So I think for anybody that would be a potential business looking at coming in, that would be more appealing to know that potentially is much longer than, oh, they brought in one other person and we're out in 8 months.
No, so what I take from your suggestion is that if we take on the new lease on April 1st, that the sublease should be at least 5-year sublease, is that?
I would say.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I don't think it's fair to a business to, you know, get up and running, and it's expensive the first 3 years of getting business cards, getting, you know, everything that you need to advertise, and then all of a sudden you have to move. It wouldn't be advantageous for any business to do that in anything under 5 years.
Okay, and then you at that after the 5 year, then you decide whether it's going to be. You'll know your
Year to year.
situation at
you'll
that
have a better
time,
idea.
and you'll have a better idea. It could be another 5-year lease or whatever. Okay.
And sorry, Bob, just to clarify, right now, we're just voting on the description, correct? We're not voting
No.
on the numbers?
Option.
No, what you're voting on is like the description, we put it in the budget because we have to by Municipal Government Act.
Right.
We have to put in something for a capital plan if we're going to do a major project. So that's why it's there. However, the option that is by putting that description in there, you're going to be agreeing as to whether you want to pause or carry on with the growth. So right now, since 2019, the administrative tasks have been growing exponentially. The biggest thing that happened recently was the 2023 strategic plan that laid out a whole bunch of things that the council wants to achieve, which takes up a lot of admin time. But most probably what would change things is the result of the annexation process and also the result of an official plan and development bylaw process. So at that rate, we know that we're going to need more space. The other option is, well, you don't want to have that ability to grow for at least another 5 years. So you want to pause on that. That way you won't need to do another penny increase next budget. Each penny equals $17,600 roughly.
And each penny, just, you know, for us, but also people listening,
That's the-
one
on the
penny
bill
is roughly how much on an average tax?
On the average tax bill is $7.
Okay.
So,
But I should also mention that in the RMB expansion reserve, there is the 25,000. But we're also recommending that some of the leftover reserve money be moved into the expansion reserve, and that would equate to an extra $20,000, 288. So that means your expansion reserve would be, 45,000. So that would mean the first year, the reserve itself could take some of the hit, you know, and then you expend some of that reserve, and so it would pay for some of the costs, whatever they might be. And then also it could take in some of the extra that you're gonna be paying in lease fees. But it will cost more money in the future if you go with that.
Yeah, that's clear.
So is it an option, and it might not be a preferred option of YDAC? So like, in the way that I look at it is it seems like a good opportunity for us. It sucks that we're kind of being in this position where we have to make a decision on it today, or like right like in this current year. It'd be lovely if it was like came up for discussion 2 years from now, whenever we're much more closer to actually needing more of that space. So my thought process goes to, if we don't take it, what kind of situation are we gonna be in later on when we do need to make a move? And so the first thing that came to my mind was, what would be lovely is to just even know, like a Canvas community, does anybody have ideas, know of spaces that we could look at? And then make a decision knowing that we know we've checked, there's like literally nothing in the community that would work. This is the only viable option unless we want to risk spending tens to hundreds of thousands of dollars to build something when we need it. So is that an option that we could not make the decision today, but we could commit to YDAC to making a decision like in the next month?
Oh, okay, well,
So many things.
two things. The pause option basically deals with that.
Okay.
And so the discussion that we had was that so let's say we do the pause, okay, and we don't take YDAC up on the train station. Then when we do need it, we would see if the train station is available at that time. It may or may not be, because they should have leased it out to somebody else. However, the other option is to look at our own office and how much does it cost to punch out a wall. We already worked it out. It's going to cost $200,000 or $300,000 to punch out a wall in order to
Where you currently are.
where we currently are, or the same option that we did when we originally looked for space, and this was the only place that was available, or the most attractive space that was available at the time. So yes, if in 4 years we decide, okay, we're busting out, we have to do something, we could then look around in the community to see if there's somewhere suitable. If not, another option is to punch out a wall and do it ourselves. That's an option. The second part that you added in at the last minute was, well, can we just wait? We can. Well, there's two things. The capital plan is talking about whether we wanted it or not. What are you waiting for?
The waiting would be, in my mind, before we commit to going forward with taking on the train station,
Yep.
I'd feel a lot better, because I wasn't involved in the exploration to get this space,
Right.
confirming where we kind of like canvass the community, because people might know of places or things that are available or will be available that could be a viable option for the office.
The problem with that is that we don't need to do that right now. And if we were to find some space to move into.
Yeah, no, I'm not saying find a space to move into, kind of like
Right.
canvas
So-
to see what possible opportunities would be
Right,
available.
so as per real estate, it's what's available at the time or what you know about is going to be available in the future. So it's pretty hard to say, okay, well, in 4 years or 5 or 7, when we need it, could we move in here? Well,
Maybe.
you can't ask anybody that. So the only thing that you can do is say at the time when you need it, your option would be to look around and or punch out a wall.
Well, no, I think that I disagree with that. We could definitely come up with an option where someone says, hey, I have a space that will be available April 2025. So that we don't have to take it now. It could be, or someone could say, hey, I'm gonna have a space in 2026. I'd be
Yes.
happy to work out a lease with you guys for that, because it's
Okay,
the
well, to
same
be
thing as what we do
clear,
with WIDAC.
we do not need the space for April 1 of 2025.
Right,
We're not there yet.
yeah,
It's gonna take a couple years for the official plan and development bylaw, for the annexation plan, for the other growth. The only reason we would take it for April 1 of 2025 is so that we have the building when we do need it. And it is, the extra space that it does afford right now is big enough probably for us to work in for the next 5 to 10 years. That new, excuse me, that new space. But then we could also look for a sublease to supplement the costs.
but that same option could also be out there right now that we don't know about because we haven't looked. Now, I wasn't a part of the process, so maybe you can speak to whenever you guys did end up here, you looked around the community.
Yes.
What did you see?
Okay, that was me.
Yeah,
I was tasked with that, and I took suggestions from members of council, and I looked around of what was available, and then basically
Ended up at the fire hall.
yeah, we ended up
Saw
at
that,
the
yeah.
fire hall, and we had to get out of there after a couple months because we couldn't deal with the fumes.
yeah.
It was more
Working
than a
in
few
that
months. We were
building.
there.
Oh yeah,
We were there a year.
yeah. That's what happened to me.
Yeah.
Yeah, all the fumes.
What-
Anyway, so we
You're
looked
not very good
around.
at picking spaces.
We couldn't.
So you just viewed
This
one
was the-
spot?
What's that?
I'm curious to like actually physical places that you viewed.
We used one spot, which was the fire hall.
Yeah.
We looked around, and the only space that was available at that time was the fire hall.
Okay,
Then we looked around more, and then this space, the space that we're in, came available, but we were also looking around at somewhere else. We had designs on the Women's Institute building that they retrofitted.
Yeah, the street.
Yeah, but they had plans for that, and then there was, yeah, basically that's all we were.
There wasn't many options
No,
when we
there
were
wasn't.
considering.
and to say that there are many options now or will be, I have no idea.
We have
But-
no idea.
Yeah, it just, for me, it's an uncomfortable position to sign up for leasing that space for April 1st, 2025, because we don't know that we necessarily will be able to find a sublease, so we
Right.
could be on the hook for that amount.
Yep.
And so the other thing that makes me uncomfortable is that we haven't checked to see what the current other options are. And I would feel a lot more comfortable saying yes to this, knowing that there isn't anything else
Right.
optional.
Right.
And
So-
we're just kind of in a weird position where WIDAC really would like an answer now, and we don't really necessarily have the time to get that answer.
Right, so to follow along with your suggestion, that would mean you would go recommend the pause, and that we do that research or whatever.
Revisit it in the fall.
We would revisit it, well, actually, yeah, you could revisit it in the fall, at that time.
But then that would, sorry.
Now, as far as the budget goes, we would not put it in the budget, because this would be now a new initiative we'd have to put in the following year's budget.
But we still have the
But-
expansion plan.
If we
You can still fill the expansion fund.
wait till the fall though, then WIDAC's going to go ahead and potentially
Lease it to somebody
lease
else.
someone else and retrofit and do everything that will end up having to cost.
Right.
So if we pause it, like, how, you said they're good for like a month that we could pause?
No,
or-
they want.
No, they had
It's
asked
one
if they
answer
could
from
tell us right
theirs.
away, because they wanna use the money from selling the restaurant equipment to help fund the retrofits.
Darn, I thought they'd let us have a month to discuss
Well, I
this.
mean, they may, if, for example, we say we're going to pause it at this point, we want to have a month, and then we can revisit this at the next council meeting, which means we would pause that decision at this moment, and we would take it out of the capital fund description.
I think it's hard too because, you know, we've discussed potentially subletting it to a restaurant. So if White Act is specifically looking for, you know, an answer on the
Well, they weren't able to-
restaurant equipment tonight, you know, we don't know if we're gonna put a restaurant in there either, right? So it
Right.
still doesn't help them.
No, and not only that, but they stopped looking for a restaurant as soon as the other restaurant canceled, because we had expressed an interest to say, if it ever comes available, of course, we thought it was gonna be
Yeah.
2 or 3 or 4 years down the road, but if it ever comes available, let us know, and then we'll make that decision. So if we tell them today that, okay, council decides to pause it at least for a month, it'll be up to WIDAC whether they want to pursue another restaurant or another tenant.
Well, they got tenders out
That's right,
already for food trucks
yes.
Yep.
to put in the lot here.
So
So
you can
that-
certainly pause it and then make the decision later. We could look around. The only problem with looking around is that even if we found a space, we don't need to move in on April 1st. The only reason we even have it on the budget is because train station was available. So it's just to take advantage of the space, not because we need to move.
In a year, April, in a year's time.
We might need it in a year's time,
No.
2 years' time.
It's ready in a year's time.
Oh yeah, it's gonna be ready for April 1, but they'll be looking for a tenant before they finish. Anyway,
Can you just confirm, Bob, we don't currently have like a procurement bylaw
no,
or anything along
Nope.
those lines?
What do you think, Billy?
I don't know. It's the big thing that comes to my mind is the cost of things going up, and if we were to retrofit, what that, you know, if that's in 2 years' time, it becomes available again, and that's the only option, and we need it. I mean, something that could cost $10,000 now might be $50 for building supplies in a year or two. That sticks out to me, but the problem is how few buildings there are in Belfast that are suitable. Because when we looked, I mean, there weren't, the only things that are around are Iona Hall,
Yeah, and that's on by the church.
yeah, and the Legion, but that it's not suitable, and
That's been sold.
it's the Legion hasn't, just the property.
Oh,
Yeah. But there weren't many options was the big thing. But it's a catch-22. You're damned if you do, you're damned if you don't. Because, you know, will there be something available when we need it, or the cost in general? But it is kind of, if we don't need it, pausing may be a good idea.
I guess
No.
that, you know, the flip side of that, I wonder, you know, are we being selfish for jumping on the space that we don't necessarily need now, and are we potentially causing more harm to our community in the sense that now this space isn't open for, you know, a health center or something to go in there? So that's like the catch-22, right?
Yeah.
Like it's you know, it's a flip of a coin in my mind. Like we're kind of, yeah, like you say, damned if we do, damned if
Yeah.
we don't.
That was kind of where I was like, okay, well, best of both worlds. We move into part of it and use bare minimum of what we currently need, and then sublease out ideally to
Somehow.
healthcare or something that
Yeah.
could use it. Because yeah, it's like, well, where are we looking at for the future? And if we find a building, is it accessibility? Is it how much retrofit we're looking at? This is an easy location for community to come while they're here getting like liquor, sweets, candy, you know, pop in and get the information that they need. So it's kind of, you know, there's multi-pronged onto it. And especially knowing with the potential plan that's going in for the What Islands Corporation development. Yeah, my concern is that, you know, this is going to start becoming a happening area and we may not get this offer again. You know, it's very much the damn you, damn if you don't. And that's where it's like, okay, well, you know, knowing that stuff's happening in this area, I don't think it would be a problem to be able to lease part of it, but that would be my strong stipulation is that we only inhabit the bare minimum area that we need and look at some of that can benefit the community.
I should tell you that the way the building is configured now, first of all, they said they would configure the building for our specifications. However, the way the building is already configured, there is a wall with a doorway where the kitchen materials are, and the space on the right-hand side is perfect size for us, and it would probably be good enough space for us there for 5-10 years, easy, I think, without having to move into the other side, which would mean 2 5-year leases on the left-hand side to whomever.
And that would help offset the cost of the rental.
Right.
So, yeah.
That's correct, yes. However,
Finding
we
a
don't know
lease.
what the annexation process is gonna bring us, and we don't know what the official plan development bylaw is gonna bring us, so that's. But anyway, the space that's there, it would be set up exactly for us, and it's already set up for an easy transfer to sublease a portion, and the space that is open on our side is already bigger than what we have, so it will do us probably 5 to 10 years.
Finding a lease would be an issue.
Yeah.
These people couldn't find a lease for it for
Yeah.
since a year,
Yeah.
so
Could be, yeah.
I don't know. I don't like the way they're trying to strong arm us into signing up for that thing tonight. Without take council the time to think about it. That's my opinion.
So then your option is to do the pause, and hopefully it's available after we do a little bit more research.
I could go back to them and ask them for a month at least.
Sorry, I asked Lynn, you know.
Yeah,
first
going
and
back
that-
to taking the space from someone else, would the office space we have now be then available
Yes.
when we move? So there's still space in this village available for somebody if we took that,
True.
which would be suitable for foot care or massage. It's a good size office. But on the other hand, yeah, no one likes to be have anyone tapping their toes in front of you to make a decision in real time either, when you don't have all the statistics in front of you.
Bob, if we say yes to this tonight, you know, I assume it would still be open for discussion from council, or is it just, you know, we say yes tonight and then you take,
Right.
Take it
The idea is that we wanted to have it in writing, because everything else was in pieces. Like we set up the reserve, we talked about the expansion, we talked about, because we thought it was gonna happen in the long term. However, because it's now available in a relatively short term, we need to put something down in our documents to say that you've made a decision and that we're gonna move in that direction. Because I need the direction to say, okay, what direction are we moving? What do you want? And so if we say that, now you do have the ability to say, we're not going to make that decision tonight. We're gonna pause it for
30 days?
30 days
Okay,
till the
can we do
next
that?
council meeting. We will let WIDAC know that that's the decision. It'll be up to them to decide if they want to do anything about that, or accept that, or not, or just, they may decide to look for somebody else at that time. And, or we can still make that decision in a month if you want, if it's available. As a matter of fact, if it's available, that decision might be made next month, 2 months from now, 3 months from now, whatever. But just be aware that I expect, if I were them, I would be looking for a tenant.
The thing is too, we're kind of a preferred tenant because with it being a restaurant, I mean, it was never a fully winterized building, so they could
No.
only operate seasonally. Really, they ran later than they ever used to.
Yep.
Yeah.
There's no question, they've expressed the fact that we are the preferred tenant because we are 12 months tenant.
Would the price reflect that, I wonder, seeing as...
It has already, with the amount that they're offering for the lease.
Yeah.
So if we're the preferred tenant, 30 days is not a lot for them to sit on.
Yep.
There you go.
Yeah, because if we wanted to sublet, I mean, it wouldn't be viable to have a restaurant really as a sublet just for the fact that they, 5 to 6 months of the year we don't have somebody in there.
Oh, actually, so for what you
It's gonna be
just said,
winterized, right?
yeah, so for what you just said, if you don't think a restaurant is a viable sublease anyway,
I think we could do way
then just
better for the
tell them
community.
to go ahead and they could sell it if they want to and look for other tenants, or they may look for a restaurant to be another tenant, but then like you say, then they're only gonna get them for 5 months.
Yeah.
So they miss out, so
So
then.
hold on 1 second. Is the plan that, of the work that they're gonna do over there is to winterize it?
Yes,
Partly.
Right, so then they would
There's a lot
have the
of-
ability to rent it out 12 months, a year to a restaurant
correct.
after the renovation.
No
Okay, so-
one's ever expressed interest though.
Yeah, no, it's not,
Yeah,
it's
it's
not
not.
definitely.
Because the
Yeah.
tourist season stops and they won't have a clientele.
Mhm.
Yeah.
However, they may decide when we tell them that we want to pause for that, but we've decided we're not going to do a restaurant, then they may decide to go ahead and sell the
Equipment.
equipment.
That seems like a reasonably good kind of like position for us, 'cause I don't think
I don't
we
think-
would be in a position that if we were subleasing, that we'd want to sublease necessarily to a restaurant, because then we're on the hook
Yeah,
for the.
Right.
yeah, we could do better.
There's, because we're
First thing, we could do
subleasing,
way better to our community
Yeah.
with a
Get a
healthcare
service.
service or
Yeah.
something,
plus there's also insurance implications and.
liabilities.
Yeah. That seems like maybe a good
Crazy.
position for us to have.
Given that we still have a lot to talk about tonight, I would like to make the motion that we sit on it for 30 days and go ahead and tell WIDOC that they can sell the restaurant equipment.
So basically,
mover.
that's the pause option. What I'll do is I'll take that stuff out of the capital plan. Just because we don't have it planned yet, so it doesn't belong there if it's not planned
Does
yet.
it need to be in a plan for us to execute it? So like, if we unpause it next month, then what?
Well, that's fine. Then
Okay.
when we do the budget next year, it'll be in next year's capital plan. So the pause.
Good night, Merrill, thank you.
So the pause would be to,
Happy Easter.
I don't want to take the money and run, but I have to go.
You're just gonna take the money and run.
so basically the pause would be that.
Come on, guys, it's
Jerry.
gonna be fun. We're just getting started.
Then we'll move it to the next council
We're
meeting.
gonna get pizza delivered.
Okay, Trish?
Honestly.
We'll move it to the next council meeting?
Yes.
And that we will let WIDAC know that we have no interest in the
Restaurant.
restaurant equipment.
Yes.
Is that good with everybody?
Everybody
Seconder?
clear and
I second
okay with?
Trish's move.
Perfect, next.
Just a second, you said it was Trish and
Seconded
Lynn?
by Lynn.
Okay, wait, so is that amendment 3 or is that a separate amendment?
No, it's a
No,
separate
that's,
amendment.
no, that's number 3.
Thank
Okay.
you for
And
coming.
it's just been amended. So number 3 is gonna be described as
So
this decision. Okay. And did you do a vote?
all in favor?
I,
Right?
Nays? Motion carried.
Okay. Did anybody want to break?
No,
Go pee?
let's
No, I
go.
wanna go home.
Okay.
Charlie
Trish has gotta
had,
get home.
Charlie had an amendment for though, correct? So,
Right.
yeah.
Oh,
That's where we're going to now.
Okay.
number 4. Okay.
Wait, who seconded that last one?
Trish and then Lynn seconded.
Okay, amendment 4.
Is anybody still online with us? Did they give it
12 people are watching at the
Wow,
moment.
good for them.
Yeah, and there's a lot of comments going on.
We do not respond to comments.
Do not
at this
respond to
time.
comments.
No,
But we will read them
But-
later
but,
and cry.
no,
Okay.
they're not bad. They're not bad.
Okay, we're trying. We're
Yeah,
trying
no,
here, people.
They're all
Doing the
fine.
best we can.
Yeah. No, they're all good so far.
Next.
So I'd like to move to allocate our election budget into a reserve budget. I'd be definitely interested if anybody wanted to talk about also legal as well. But I feel like that's the intent that I want it, but if somebody else wanted to,
I would recommend that if you're moving the election into a reserve budget, that you also do the legal.
why is that?
Because we've never had to use the legal and
No, you just
we've never actually had a legal budget before. And the only reason that it was suggested is that MRSB said, well, if you're gonna get into development, then you're gonna need one. However, we're not gonna need one this year because we're not there yet.
Yeah.
So we
Yeah,
can
I guess
either
the.
take it out of the budget or you can move it into a reserve.
Yeah, I guess maybe the concern would be, once you start putting things together, then you're kind of in the same situation that you were in before, where it's like, the idea is, we have an election reserve, the money that goes in there
Okay.
is kind of meant for the election. I'm gonna have a legal reserve as well, and that kind of fits the same thing, but once you mix them together, then it's like you could have a couple $1,000s for election, have a big legal bill, and then the election money's gone.
Okay,
Yeah,
no, that makes
I
sense.
agree with that. That's
So maybe what I say, and I don't know, we don't have a budget for legal right now, so I don't know if we need to make a motion to have a
Yeah, we
separate
do.
legal reserve, but that's something that we can do in the future.
Yeah, so
when we have a
but
legal
we'll do
budget.
them as
no,
separate
we do.
amendments.
We do?
Yeah.
Line.
oh, it's
It's part
combined.
of 8.6.
Oh, it's part of
because we don't see
uh-huh.
that separate. Yeah.
So, the first one would be to create an election reserve and move, the $500 to that reserve.
Yes.
And do you have a seconder?
Billy,
Billy?
all in favor?
Aye.
Okay.
Nays? Motion carried.
So that will be done.
Okay, so number 4 was to move.
Oh, that was number 4, yeah, to move into election reserve.
What do you want to do the legal part?
Yeah, 'cause should be talking
Did
about
you
legal.
also want to do a similar reserve for legal?
How much do we have allocated? I don't remember.
That was,
There's 10,211 in the
I think it's-
lump. but-
In our election fund, there's $10,000?
No. E6 in the insurance, legal, workers comp.
Well,
this is-
10,211.
E6 on the first page.
hold on.
In there.
I'll give you an
Insurance,
exact
director,
number.
liabilities, legal, and workman's comp. 10,211.
Oh, yeah, but that's total. Oh, that's the wrong one.
Okay.
Legal, $1,250.
I'd like to make a motion that we establish a legal reserve and move the $1,250 budgeted into that.
We have a seconder for that motion, Trish? All in favor?
Aye.
Nays? Motion carried. So then,
Okay, sorry, the mover was Charlie and the seconder was Trish. 5-0, and that was $1,250
and that's moved into a legal,
reserve. Okay,
Is there any more of the tiny waters?
I
I find
know.
it very dry in here.
Just go
I
up
have
there.
some other water here.
Because you're doing all that talking tonight.
Number,
So we're on number
amendment number 5.
Yeah.
Yeah.
An amendment to allocate the reserve fund balances as follows. RMB expansion reserve, 45,288. Emergency preparedness reserve of 10,000. And a second warming center generator reserve, 11,000.
So I'll just remind people that the 11,000 is for our share of the second generator. So we currently have 5,000 in there now. We're adding 6. That'll give us enough to pay off our share. The emergency preparedness reserve currently has 5. It actually currently has 5 as per the end of this month, and as per last year's direction, that 5 moves to the emergency preparedness reserve. So it's now, would now sit at 10. So no additional is needed at this time, because you already made that decision. And then the RMB expansion reserve is adding that, taking that 20,000 and putting it in there. So that reserve would now sit at 45. I can also remind you that should you decide, I don't know, next year or at some point, that we no longer need that amount, you can move it somewhere else, yeah. But right now, it would sit there.
Do we have to put it anywhere, or does it continue to sit unreserved?
If it sits unreserved, then if something comes up right away, we'll have to have a council meeting to use that money if we need to, or, which is fine, or, so the question is, no, you don't have to move it, you can leave $20,000 hanging there.
Or third option, could we reduce down that 20,000 by 17 and then have a mill rate increase of just 2 cents instead of 3?
No, because then what you're doing is you're taking funds that you have in your accounts, and you are affecting your annual budget, okay? Which means if you don't do it this year, if you use reserve money to cover that mill rate increase, then next year, in order for that same amount, you're gonna need to do a 5 or 6 cent mill rate increase.
Sorry,
Because
are
now
we-
you're taking savings to do, so that means you have less money for your
Operation budget.
cash flow, because you're taking money that you already have, and it means because you're now have less in savings, next year you're not only going to require that 3 cent increase, but you're going to need more to achieve exactly, to put you in the same spot.
Okay, sorry. I understood that we were adding 25,000 or
No.
20,000 from our budget
No.
to reserves.
No,
So this is separate.
We already have the 60,000 in reserve, we're just allocating it.
Okay,
If you don't
that's
want to
fine.
allocate it as per Charlie's suggestion, you don't have to.
Okay, that's fine.
Can we put it into the GIC?
They are already,
They are, okay, yeah.
yeah. We're just naming
Mm-hmm.
what we're saving it for.
A trip to Aruba?
That's another amendment.
That's
So-
number 7.
So no, you don't have to name the remaining 20. You can leave it just undesignated if you want.
Okay.
But we definitely need the 6,000 named, and the 5,000 is going in there automatically, so you can leave the rest of it unnamed if you want.
Two sides of the same coin for me, really.
Yeah,
Doesn't matter to me.
yeah.
So what's your pleasure?
Go with your recommendation.
Okay.
Need a mover and a seconder for amendment 5.
Trish is moving.
Accept reserve allocations. Trish has moved. Seconder, hurry. Billy,
Second.
all in favor?
Aye.
What day?
Crack the whip.
I did not want to be here at midnight, I'm sorry.
Well, no, it's only 9:30, take it
This
easy.
is a short one, yes.
So,
Lots of time.
the next amendment,
agenda across the table.
the next amendment
Oh,
is
please,
amendment
no.
number 6.
Oh, Billy, don't even! You guys are mean. Okay, I do have 4 pages of notes.
See?
Amendment number 6 is to accept the suggested mill rate increase of 0.03, and the way, if it goes, if the budget goes forward as talked about now, you will be left with a surplus budget of 1,061. So,
Any
And
discussions?
alternatively, to decrease that mill rate, we would have to find an additional 16,000.
17,500. Oh, no, there's
Minus the
1,000.
1,000.
Yeah, right.
Okay.
So, yeah, about 16,500 you would have to find.
So, you don't have a crystal ball, Bob, that's for sure, but I'm just curious, like.
I do, but that's another story.
Okay, well, maybe
another
you
minute.
could bring that to the next meeting. You know, nobody really likes to see increases, for sure. I'm just wondering, I'd feel a lot better if, like, do we have kind of like a long-term, because like, it seems like we're on a track for growth. And we're gonna need to fund that growth. So it seems like we're likely on a path that we will likely need to increase next year, potentially, and if not next year, in a subsequent year as we grow.
Right. So how it came about, first of all, is when the MGA came into force and we were told that we had 5 years to do it. We knew, in my crystal ball, I said it's gonna cost us somewhere around $100,000 or $150,000. Where's that money coming from? And they said, oh, just raise as many taxes as you want. So what we decided at the time is, because we wouldn't need it for 5 years or around there, that what we do is we would do these 1 cent increases that would give us an extra 17,000 each year, and then the people would only see a $7 hit on their taxes, and then you know, depending on what comes up, eventually we would be at a spot where we have the full administrative thing with a full MGA complement, and then we should already be at a tax rate that could support it. The other option was to do nothing, and then when we needed it, we would then have to do a 20-cent mill rate increase. By doing the 1 cent, it's already there for next year, so you don't have to do it again. It's already there. But by doing the 3 cents that we have now, and especially if we do the pause for now, the 3 cent will be more than sufficient to cover. But if you decide, for example, in a couple months, that we are going to do the expansion facility, then we might be able to find ways to mitigate it, whatever, we don't know. But for the 3 cents, it's expected that will definitely, first of all, it's below inflation rate increase, and we know that we're getting some inflation. But next year, we think that either we'll be able to stick to a 0% increase or a 1 cent increase.
Okay.
Because we're 17, and with that expansion, if we do go into the new building to be sustainable, meaning it would pay for itself each year, then probably 1 cent would be more than enough, because you're looking at 10,000 plus the other stuff.
I can speak to that too. So with the FBIM, you know, we've been lobbying the government for a while now, but we're in current, it's late, my words are getting, negotiations with the government, and it's looking good so far, that the tax shares are going to be completely restructured, and so then our revenues would be changed. Alternatively, I'll talk about it now so I don't have to talk about it later. You know, with us looking at annexation, they are, and this is directly from the Premier, they're looking at creating incentives for those unincorporated areas to move in, aka changing the tax structure so that it's more favorable for them to come into municipalities. So I guess just to, you know, bubble that all up, we're looking at increased revenue, different tax shares from the
Are some of
government.
those negotiations, like, cause like on the nose, you would expect the province is pushing down a lot of the planning authority to us. So surely there needs to be some revenue come to us to cover that.
Yeah.
And like with that kind of like change that they made back in the fall, where, correct me if I'm wrong, Bob, but municipalities can opt out of the
official
planning
plan.
They,
aspect of it.
yeah, so what they can opt out of, first of all, what they're being approved for is the official plan and development bylaw, okay? We would be responsible for, you know, we would do an application, somebody would come in, they would do an application, we'd be responsible for enforcing the bylaw and the development, or the plan and the bylaw. Then we opt out of all the rest of it. We don't do the building permits, we don't do the mechanical inspections, we don't do enforcement. The province still does all of that. We only do the official plan development portion of it. The rest we opt out of, and that belongs to the province.
And we can charge for that too.
Absolutely,
Good,
there is
'cause-
charges on the applications.
If you go to the North Shore Community Center, right, because they have their municipal office in there, when you go in, I've had it up for years, right on the door, they've got a breakdown, I think it's like $150 for a deck up to a certain size, so they have all their prices there for what they charge on it, and I guess they get a fair bit of money from it. Now it is a more cottagey area, but
And that's part of the package that FOTAM is gonna create.
So presumably, the negotiations would hinge on what your municipality takes on. If you're in a municipality that opts out of the downstream stuff, that might change what kind of tax restructuring that you receive.
And that's the word I'm receiving, that I received last night from the FBIM, that, you know, that's the Premier's plan currently.
Yeah. I had dinner with the minister, I asked him if he was gonna give RMB loads of money and he laughed.
Well, you can't say yes. It's just supposed to show up underneath.
I thought it was a good suggestion.
Okay, any more discussions on amendment number 6?
Just a second. Yeah, amendment 6 is just accepting the 3 cent.
So sorry, one last question. Have you received any communication or feedback from the public since the budget was made public, the draft budget, about the increase? Have you received any feedback?
I have not, Ashley?
I haven't either.
No.
Okay. That's all I have to say.
And I think it's worth noting too, like this 3% is actually a lot less than a lot of other municipalities right now, so.
May I have a mover and a seconder to accept the proposed mill rate increase of 3 cents for the 24-25 fiscal year? Moved by Trish, seconded by Lynn.
I'll second.
So we have Trish and Lynn?
Yeah,
Okay.
all in favor?
Aye.
Nays? Motion carried.
Next.
Okay, having had first reading of the 24-25 RMB Budget Financial Plan and Capital Plan, and having had the acceptance of variance amendments to the 24-25 RMB Budget Financial Plan, Capital Plan, RMB is now ready for second reading as amended and final approval.
Do we actually have to read it out loud?
You just did.
Okay,
You
good.
just need a mover
I'll
and a seconder.
move. Wow, we're moving, we're moving.
Okay,
Sorry,
mover
Trish.
and the seconder is moved by Catherine, seconded by
Trish.
Okay.
I'm just the fill in the blank name tonight.
All in favor?
Aye.
Nays? Motion carried.
So you can either go back to the ones that were skipped or,
Yeah, I think annexation is next. I can keep it brief.
actually the first one is number 4, which is the RCMP.
Um,
Actually would speak to that.
Yeah, he was unable to attend tonight. However, I have reached out to him, in hopes of him maybe presenting a seminar for residents in this community on frauds and scams. I noticed that in Crapo, they had a snacks and facts session for seniors. And so I reached out to Sergeant Robinson to see if maybe we could do something similar here for some of our residents that are
That's a good
interested
idea.
in that.
Yeah,
So
that's a really good idea.
yeah. So anyway, I am waiting to hear back from him on that, and his apologies that he was unable to make it tonight. But you do have his report in your packages, so.
Yeah, because there is a fraud charge on here, or a fraud call, and I mean, like, my phone auto catches spam and financial fraud ones all the time, and like every day there's 2 and 3 coming in. It's crazy now.
Yeah, you're lucky your phone does that.
Yeah.
Some people's don't.
No,
So.
and some of them are convincing because the number pops up
They're
first,
very
and it's a
convincing.
902 number, and then it
Yeah.
picks it up.
They're very convincing, so I'm hoping to get that kind of ironed out, and I'll let you guys know at the next meeting if I have any updates.
One of those came in, apparently I was phoning myself.
Your own number.
Catherine, you can.
Number
Okay.
9.
Yeah, so annexation, super brief. The committee hasn't had a meeting in itself. On Friday, March 1st, Bob, Ashley, Garth, and Billy attended a meeting with municipal affairs and the Department of Lands, which Bob has already discussed. And also ahead of the meeting, all councilors received the minutes from those. So basically just, the next steps from the committee is for us to meet again and just go over the information that was found during that meeting and, just discuss our plan moving forward, our timeline. The way I see it right now, our next biggest question left to answer is, if we are going to decide to try to run this, if we're going to try to run this parallel to our official plans, or if we're, going to pause. So there's lots of information. The information that we went into the initial decision to start this with has now changed. People high up in the government have done a switch around on us, which I think is, in my eyes, it buys us some more time, but ultimately we're still moving towards this, and every single person I talk to, every agency I talk to says we're moving towards this. It's just not quite as accelerated as it seemed to have been back in the fall. So once we have that meeting, we'll come back with what we find and what we decide. But yeah, any questions, public, councilors, feel free to reach out.
It'll be a constant agenda item.
Yes. Yeah.
I've had other individuals mention to me that they did like the idea of joining Belfast.
Good.
So that's, it's something.
And I think especially too, if the city government does come in with, these different tax divisions, then it might make that transition a lot smoother. And I think the thing I would like to stress the most, with anybody watching tonight or thereafter, that by doing this exercise now, it leaves us in control of our future.
And that's what's been voiced to me by community members, is that we're able to write our own information versus being told you must do this, this, and this.
Exactly. So it's kind of a win-win for us, but also the communities on the outside
Yeah.
that we're potentially asking to come into us, because it leaves the power in both of our hands. So.
And it could be that they potentially get something for their taxes too, instead of it all just going to the province and
Exactly.
never coming back to any programs for them.
Exactly. So we'll see. Yeah, how the timeline lays out.
Thank you, Catherine. Planned promotional and educational pieces being developed for RMB website.
Okay, so as described in this year's budget deliberations, RMB have a number of large projects on the go. To help residents understand where we came from and where we are now and some of the major projects and timelines, RMB is planning to include on our website the following: the evolution of a municipality, the official plan and development bylaw, the process and timelines as to how that works, and more about the annexation exercise in terms of the process and timelines. So I am in development phase of those projects. There are a few in drafts. I expect to have some ready soon for review. That's it for that.
I think that's super important.
Me too.
Thank you for doing that.
Thank you.
Yeah. No.
So quick question, the evolution of the municipality will be kind of like geared towards specifically the evolution of the Belfast municipality? Kind of like
Yes.
towards
That's
some of the.
Specifically what we
Exactly.
talked about today.
Yes, okay.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, that's it for that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You're up next, don't go
I am,
far.
I'm up next. Yeah. I'll keep it brief. EMO ICS training 200 was postponed due to weather, so I'm going to be taking that on April 2nd and 3rd. So I don't have a training report for you on that, but I recently had a conference call with Dakota at PEI EMO, where we discussed the potentially having a hazard risk assessment done for RMB. This meeting would likely be about an hour and a half in duration, and it would look at what risks are specific to our area. EMO recommended that we try to include representation, obviously from council, but also the Belfast Rural Fire Department, the Belfast Historical Society, and maybe the Northumberland Ferry. So some representatives from each. During the meeting, the group gathered would look at identifying risks, but also would dig deeper and look at historical hazards related to Belfast. And from there, they would discuss prevention and mitigation to those risks for our community. The meeting, we tentatively set it for June 26th at 7 p.m. And I still have to reach out to everybody to see who is obviously interested in attending. So that's...
Sorry, can you just repeat that?
Which part?
The date. The date.
The date, yeah, the date is June 26th at
10:30
7 p.m.
10:30
and it
p.m.
would be here at the market.
Okay.
So I'm just coordinating, and I will send out an email to everybody. Yes.
Didn't Fotan go through
Yeah.
something of that sort on their
Yeah.
hazard risk thing? Wasn't it Fotan that did some of that?
Wait,
something
maybe
of
that was
No.
us at the previous
EMOs.
council, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was EMO when they initially this created.
Through here? Oh,
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think I remember something of that
Because I
already.
did see the provinces like advertising these risk assessments.
Yeah.
Yes.
And they've been talking about it a lot at our training. But most of our EMO stuff is out of date, so that's another reason why I would like to have a special meeting for MEMP, which I'm still got to figure out what day, and I'll be sending information out to you guys. So the other thing I wanted to discuss was, Facebook report. We have 680 followers. We reach around 5,000 people on average per month, and RMB followers are typically between 25 and 54. Sorry. Yeah, I am looking to arrange a volunteer afternoon with council members to assist Bob and I in taking down the holiday decorations.
Christmas is over.
Yeah.
Oh, that's bad news.
Yeah, we're way past due to be taking these down.
We should get it done before Easter.
Yeah, it's nicer weather now, so it's more conducive to doing this. However, I will be sending out some dates to consider, and the more help we have, the faster it'll go. So like, I'm hoping to get this done in like one afternoon of like maybe 2 to 3 hours max. So I
I
said,
help out as long as it's not
you can bring.
the first few days of March break. So
Okay, I'll try
Can you
not
make
to
it
skip
Saturday?
break. I would love to do it on a Saturday. Like
One coming up, as in
this
4
Saturday.
days time? Yeah.
Oh,
I don't think so.
maybe not
no,
enough
this
time.
Saturday is a little too quick, I think. But maybe we could. I'll send out an email. Maybe we could do it the following one. But oh, Easter. Okay, so let me look at the let me look at the calendar, and I'll hammer out some dates and I'll send them to you. And like the children were a big help last time, so
I'll bring
we
mine and put them to
enjoyed
work.
having them. So if you guys
Not
want,
coming.
so anyway, they are welcome.
Yeah, I'll bring my kids.
They're welcome to come. And that's it for me, you guys. Thank you.
Thank you, Ashley.
The signs, putting bows.
Okay.
947, we're on the last page.
14. Number 14, new business for
Damn,
the
that's not
agenda.
bad. That's not bad.
Don't just.
I've already talked through like half of my stuff.
What's the new business? 14A.
You need to
Well,
drive home tonight. Just-
we want 14A first. 14A, Belfast Consolidated School Report, Deputy Mayor Lynn.
Alright, so this is just a short note. There was a home and school meeting on Tuesday, March 12th. And there was a new secretary appointed, Jenna White. There's going to be a family game night on April 12th from 6 to 8 in the school gym. And the kindergarten orientation is going to be in June. There's going to be a spring fundraiser. News will be released in the next month or so on that. And the spring fling date for the school is June 21st from 6 to 8 p.m. The 71st Annual Home and School Federation meeting is being held on April 13th in Charlottetown. There is a youth vaping workshop at the Charlottetown Library, 6 to 7:30 that same day. The next meeting will be Tuesday, May 7th at 7 p.m. And one other thing, they did do a Toonies for Triton donation to Heart and Stroke for February for Heart Month with the amount of $850 from the students that they
Very
raised
nice.
that week. So that's kind of all. I'll leave the principal's report with Ashley as well on that.
Thank you, Lynn. Community pantry, update, Catherine?
Just super brief. It's more so just a reminder, you know, to anybody who's stopping in for donations or picking up for themselves. Just please don't drive around the building. I don't know if anybody's looked at it recently, but it's spring and that's grass, and when you drive on it, it turns into mud. And so just to respect that the pantry is on private property, you know, GW Visitors and Sons, you know, allows the pantry to be there. But it's just, you know, a respect thing. So, yeah, read the signs and just don't drive around.
There is a bunch of donations at the door.
Yes. And then, yeah, otherwise, you know, it's business as usual. It's busy. It's every month it gets a little bit busier. Just thank you to anyone and everyone who's donated. And just a reminder that the pantry is open 24/7, both for pickup or for donations, and that any monetary donations can be dropped off to the visitor's office during normal hours. That's that.
Belfast Days, save the date, Lynn.
Belfast Days 2024 will be the weekend of June 21st to 23rd. agenda is not finished yet, but I just wanted to make sure everyone knew to kind of save the date, and it'll be like the summer solstice weekend.
Right,
Oh, fun.
Excellent.
Better than right
okay, and we had the ferry update. Iona Park revitalization, Councillor McGivern.
My understanding is that Iona Park received a grant maybe 2 years ago,
Yep,
and for
gas tax grant.
Gas tax, 4 years ago.
4 years ago, and due to COVID and things like that, they were delayed, but it sounds like that they are on the move, equipment procured for the establishment of kind of like a playground area in Iona,
Cool.
next to the hall.
Okay, where they used to have the ball field?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Um, They're on schedule, and
Yep,
Belfast
basically
Creek
they're-
is on schedule this year, isn't it, for
Yeah.
there?
Yeah, the rink has also, had done significant stuff, and so did the Historical Society.
Okay, thank you, Charlie. Anything else?
F was FPIM.
Yeah, I got 3 things, sorry. So I just kind of went through and highlighted what I needed to say so we could get out of here. But basically we had a long meeting last night. We passed our 2024-25 budget. We're also preparing for our AGM, which is coming up on the 29th of April. There's quite a few different speakers, lots of representatives from provincial government going there. And you don't have to be, just in case, you know, there's community organizations that want to go, you don't have to be a municipality or a member of FBM to go. It's a little bit higher registration fee, but it is open to anyone. There's a lot of things we're working on, a lot of things that don't really pertain to us, so I'm not gonna update us on it. The couple things that do pertain to us, the Fire Safety Act is currently being created in the legislature. I don't know at what stage they're at with it. It's my understanding that they're looking to consolidate the Fire Prevention Act, the Firefighter Long Service Medal Act, and the Rural Community Fire Companies Act all into one legislative framework. So I did reach out to Belfast Fire Department and just more so letting them know that this is happening. It's not our jurisdiction, so again, you know, if anybody sees that and has any questions, you know, it's really best to go to our MLA.
They do have a site on our website specifically for the fire department, so we reached out to the fire department saying if they want to update it or put on any requirements of that,
New
they can go ahead. That site was there specifically for them.
The FIM has also launched a new municipalities only job board, and that's going to be located directly on the FBIM website. So basically, if we were ever looking to hire anyone, you know, for a development bylaw officer upcoming, that's where the jobs would now get posted. And likewise, if anyone's looking for municipal work, they can go to that website to see what's currently available. I already touched a little bit on this, but I just want to make sure it's all covered. So at the end of our meeting, we had our president's address, and so that is Bruce McDougall, and he's a counselor in Somerset, and he's been a long-standing president of FPIM. So he had a meeting with the Premier, as well as the Minister of Housing and Communities, so both Dennis King and Rob Lance. A question was raised regarding the official plan and the requirements for municipalities to now to have this now that it's been amended, and that part's been removed from the MGA. So, you know, in the words of Bruce, he said, Mr. King has made it clear that it is his hope that municipalities will continue to create their official plans despite the requirement being removed. He added that the amendment to the MGA came with recognition that there are some small municipalities that are unable to meet those requirements at this time. And he was referring to those. there are municipalities that only have like 25, 50 people. So in their eyes, Belfast is not one of those small municipalities. And that his wish is that municipalities that are able and willing to meet those requirements will continue to do so. And then I touched on this, but it was also noted that incentives will be coming from municipalities that have their official plans completed, and that there will be tax changes coming to make it more appealing for unincorporated areas to join any municipality. So this was in regards to, province-wide municipalization, but Mr. King put his foot down in that meeting, said hard, firm no, that there would be no province-wide municipalization coming from his government during this term. And, we kind of went into that with a different idea at the time, because at the time it was being floated around that was coming, but he made it very clear that he wants that initiative at this time to be driven by the municipalities and the communities themselves, and that any initiatives to do so will be supported by his government and staff.
We got that same message from the master plans.
So they're finally, in agreement, which is, a miracle in any level of government. But yeah, it seems like we're getting a clear, concise answer for the first time in a long time.
I'll keep pushing them for the scads of money that I...
Anything on G? Do we have a G?
Yes, we do. Catherine, Shop Belfast.
Yeah, so Shop Belfast. So now I wanted to wait until we had officially passed the budget. But now the budget's been passed and we, officially have money for Shop Belfast. Tourist season is quickly approaching. So, basically in the next few days, I'm going to be trying to get, we had promised a meeting with any interested businesses. So that'll be the first step for Shop Belfast this year, is setting up a meeting that will be inclusive to everyone to come. We're still looking on avenues of funding, and we will continue to update council if we're successful with any of those bids. Yeah, basically, just reinstating that the program was designed because of the ferry closure last year. And, we've received great news tonight, but we've also know that can flip at any time. So I think it's still in our best interest to continue to plan, and especially if you're a small business owner, to look for those different contingencies. So yeah, hopefully this program will be successful again this year, and we'll be able to, bring some extra business here. We are new this year looking at potentially bringing in, so last year it was only open to RMB residencies and businesses. So this year we are potentially toying with the idea of allowing other local businesses just outside our borders to come in. So those
Cross-border shopping.
I know. So any of those businesses that are close by that would like to partake, are welcome to come to the next meeting. But yeah, so we're gonna hit the ground running, and that'll be up and running soon. And then I'm the last.
H is you as well.
So I okay. I was approached by Ian Petrie, who just asked me to bring up that the Southeast Environmental Association is holding its AGM on March 26th, and it will be at the boardroom of the Access PI building, which is 41 Wood Islands Road in Montague, and the meeting will begin at 6 p.m. The guest speaker this year will be Dan Dupont, who will talk about the important forestry initiatives of the Sustainable Forest Alliance. And just in quotations, our goal is to support PI forest management that is ecologically sustainable, climate smart, and economically viable. Healthy standing forests are critical to the riparian zones around waterways and the province's effort to fight climate change. And so he just asked to please pass this on to any landowners that might be interested in learning more.
Selkirk Road.
Yep.
And tell them that the province is the biggest contributor to deforestation there is. Anyhow, okay. Thank you, Catherine. Anything else?
Yeah,
Yes, Lynn.
Lynn has something.
All right, so this is based on some complaints around speed. And there have been a couple complaints addressed over the last number of years. So this is Selkirk Road, which is Route 23. And I'm just gonna start with March 16th, there was social media post and it was shared. There was a dog struck by a pickup truck that was traveling at a large speed. Unfortunately, this dog did not make it. There were children with this dog in playing that saw this happen. There is a blind hill by this
Several.
area. Yeah, quite a bit of hills, and this area where it happened is highly residential. There's a lot of new homes. It's very clustered, but a school bus route as well. Now this road is 18.8 kilometers long. Speed limit is 80 kilometers. There's 8 major junctions connecting Route 23. So south end being Wood Islands to north end being Orwell. So during ferry season, this road picks up significantly because it's a shortcut. Instead of taking the Trans-Canada, a lot of people cut through the 315 that connects to 210. So it is massive traffic, speeding on this road, okay? So, PEI speed limit zones, 50 is typically residential, 60 is typically school zone, 80 for open highways with a maximum of 90 on our Trans-Canada. So there is a section from Route 211 Newtown Cross to Route 210 Orwell. That's approximately 6 miles, 9.5 kilometers. So there would be a section of that, which would be half of it, that is recommended to lower the speed limit just for that little portion. Unfortunately, there's been traffic fatalities on this road.
Yep.
The most recent being August of 2022. I did send 2 emails, one to the Department of Transportation and Infrastructure, to the Minister Honorable Ernie Hudson, and I sent one to Access PEI Roads Division. I had a reply from the Roads Division saying they would forward my request and inquiry on to the Engineering Department. That was today, March 20th. So that was in my email request, was what are the steps involved in getting the speed limit lowered in a danger zone, essentially, like highly residential, there's a lot of children. So that's where I'm at right now. I wanted to take that on for the people that were having issues with this.
Well, certainly hats off to you because you've gotten an answer. I have not gotten an answer when I tried this in the fall, because what we truly need to do is drop that speed limit down enough in that section or a few different sections to alter the algorithm that Google has, so that when people come off the highway, and it doesn't matter how much signage or anything, they're tourist tunnel vision, they come off the ferry, they plug in Charlottetown, and it shoots them right up Selkirk. If we can lower the speed limit, and this is where I was coming from, like a tourist, of trying to like change the algorithm,
Yeah.
reaching out to not who you said, but I didn't get anywhere at this point. But we truly need to decrease the speed limit enough along there, or a stop sign or something, to slow it down so that it alters the algorithm, so that we can decrease at least the seasonal traffic that are the tourists that are like, you know, not like, where are we going, and not necessarily looking for, you know, what they should be. And also, like, if you're looking at it from a tourist point of view, what a crappy, like, hello to the island, we're going to feed you up Selkirk, which is a highway that's not meant for that much travel, not meant for that much speed, and you're looking at farmland, trees, and that's it, versus going along the Trans-Canada, which is designed and built for that much traffic.
Also, 2 of those intersections have red flashing lights.
Yeah, and it doesn't
Because
matter.
of the past circumstances.
And it doesn't seem to slow them down.
It's a lot of people using this. If they're coming off the ferry, they may not be from here. They may not be familiar, especially at night, that there's a stop sign approaching. Yes, there's flashing lights there now. But they're opposite. One is straight through traffic this way with stop signs this way. The next intersection is straight through this way and stop signs this way.
Yeah, it doesn't make sense.
If you're not familiar with the area, you may fly right through there. But it seems the biggest issue is more the north end, closer to Orwell. It's past the last hill, the section between Newtown Cross and Orwell. Whether they can do half of that section closer to the stop sign at a lower speed, possibly insert some speed bumps at the beginning of each
Oh, I thought
dip.
the potholes were the speed bumps. Right, they're natural.
That's the good section of road where they go.
I just know that putting a sign, taking an 80 sign down and putting up a 50 or 60 is not maybe going to help a lot, so it may take a few different
Just a
things.
few calls to
Sign.
Mike to set up his radar.
Yeah, I was hoping to talk to him when he was here.
So that's kind of where I was at, was asking what are the steps involved in lowering the speed limit?
Yeah.
That's,
People like
And
to
lower
start-
enough that we can adjust that algorithm.
I think it's important that that's been addressed.
People like to run that light too, the one right in Iona there, because I near T-boned the recycle truck the other day. He didn't stop. He went right straight through.
You would not win that one.
Nope. Nope, definitely not. Yeah, I had
fixing a
about 20
drivetrain.
feet from the middle of his truck when he passed through. It was pretty scary.
Okay, our next,
The last one is Jay.
oh, there's more.
Yeah, last one is Jay, and that is from me. I was fortunate on Monday to be at the Rotary meeting, and there was an announcement from Meals on Wheels. Meals on Wheels, as you know, through the community pantry issues, there's food insecurity issues. And what was so exciting was that Meals on Wheels have introduced a rural program. So for the first time in PEI, there's now a rural program. I'll let you know what it says. Meals on Wheels is developing a frozen meal delivery program that aims to benefit community members across PEI. The program could be of benefit if you are a senior in recovery from illness, surgery, have trouble cooking for one, in need of healthier meals, able to pay for a small meal for delivery. Additional assistance may be available, living in rural PEI, or have been unable to access Meals on Wheels in the past. What's so good about this is that if you are one person that needs meals, they will actually deliver you 7 days worth of frozen meals and to your house at $5 a piece. And basically, and if you have 2 people in the house that need the meals, they'll do 2 times 7 or whatever. It's never been available before. It is now. They are taking suggestions, and they're also people can call in. So when I mentioned it to the Women's Institute, Bell River Women's Institute, they said, hey, we got a list of 12 people that we can give you. And so what the community is saying is that if you know of somebody who could benefit from meals that are already prepared, that are only $5 and they get delivered to your door, let them know, and or you can contact the person, give them the information, and they can call them. Either way, they're taking registrations over the next 2 to 3 weeks, and they're going to be starting to deliver sometime in April. So really good news for rural people who have trouble getting good meals.
Excellent.
Thank you.
Yeah, it was a good announcement. Oh, and by the way, CBC's gonna call me tomorrow.
Whoa.
Ask me the same thing.
That's it. Our next regular council meeting is Wednesday, April 17th, 2024, at 7 p.m. upstairs at the meeting hall in Woodhouse Market. And if there is no further business, goodbye, Facebook.
Trish!
Trish.